unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm unmuted.
There we go.
There we go.
All right. All right. I think we have all school. Can I see Miss Brandolini, Miss Limbaum, Mr. Hayes, Mr. Long? All right. I'd like to call the April 26, 2021 Scituate School Committee meeting to order at 6:01. As usual, I will read the health emergency. In response to Governor Baker's declaration of a public health emergency and the related emergency executive order dated March 12, 2020, the town of Scituate public meetings shall meet remotely until further notice. This meeting will be recorded and streamed via Facebook Live on the SCTV Facebook page and will be posted following the meeting. Public comment will be available via Zoom. Community members can also email me, pgates@cit.org, with comments. So I'd like to call the meeting to order via roll call vote. Ms. Brandolini,
Yes.
Ms. Limblom,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Hayes,
Yes.
and Gates is a yes. I also remind the chat functionality has been turned off. We will have 2 opportunities for public comment. Looks like we don't have too many folks in tonight, probably still on vacation. So with that, I'd like to welcome everyone back from vacation. Hopefully you are all able to get some rest and relaxation. We're right back at it the Monday following. And with that, we're going to kick off tonight's agenda with Celebrate Student Learning with Greg Ranieri, Department Chair of Business Education, Family and Consumer Sciences, Health Education, and Physical Education. Mr. Ranieri.
Thank you, Mr. Gates. I'd like to start by thanking Mr. Green, Ms. McDonald, Mr. Puzingar, and Mr. Sawyer for their tireless commitment this entire school year. Additionally, I'd like to thank our elementary leadership team and administration for embedding critical collaboration time into schedules that allowed for essential idea sharing and team processing to take place. When you think of physical education in elementary school, you think of gymnasiums or fields filled with energetic children, running, throwing, playing, laughing. Similar to every other educator during the pandemic, our elementary physical education team found themselves in a cycle of continual innovation, implementation, and reflection. Certain curricular and instructional approaches flourished. For example, many fitness and motor skill activities could be adapted or even enhanced for the remote setting. It may have involved substituting a rolled up pair of socks in a laundry basket to develop underhand throwing accuracy instead of foam balls and hula hoops, or teachers propping up their phones in order to create animated GIFs for demonstrating mountain climbers or various other physical activities, and then embedding themselves into original remote workout routines for kids. As part of our weekly collaboration time, we were honest with ourselves on what was going well and areas for development. One of those important areas for opportunity our team considered was how to address important personal and social competency standards. Group hands-on team building activities with meaningful in-person debriefing simply were not feasible. Regardless, the team continued to reflect on how to develop deeper relationships, how deeper relationships could be built with students, and more personal connections made within the remote classroom environment. Then the team innovated our superhero lesson, which combined both fitness and personal and social competency standards, which I am excited to share with you this evening. So, hoping this goes well.
What's your superhero power? Presented by the Scituate Elementary Health and Wellness Team. In this activity, students consider how their positive personal attributes are like those of superheroes. Students are able to make connections to how they are dependable like Superman, honest like Wonder Woman, kind like Spider-Man, courageous like Captain America, responsible like the Black Widow, strong like the Hulk, creative like Doctor Strange, brave like Thor, generous like Captain Marvel, and trustworthy like Wanda. Every superhero has a special quality that separates them from the rest. Once a student selects their superhero power, they need to perform the exercise that matches. Let's check out some of the superhero qualities of our students.
So choose your superhero power. So Black Widow is responsible. And responsible is having the obligation to do something. Or being capable of being trusted by someone. All right? Hulk, strong. I mean, just look at him, strong. And Black Panther is being respectful. Showing or having respect for yourself and to others. Okay? So which superpower do you have? So if it's responsible, you're going to be doing jumping jacks. If you're strong, you're going to be doing push-ups from your knees. Remember to keep our back nice and straight. And if you're respectful, you're going to be doing mountain climbers. All right? 30 seconds. Ready? Go.
That's it, Noah. Nice skaters, Scott. Reese, nice jumping jacks. 5 seconds. Here we go. And stop.
Here we go.
You're kind. You know what, Jenna? The other day when I went for my walk, remember that you saw me and you gave me a drink during lunch? I have to say, and I have to agree that you're kind. Can you give me an example other than what I just said? That was so awesome. You gave me some lollipops. This was on St. Patrick's Day. They had like a little table set up.
I was there.
You were. I remember, Tate. Go ahead, Jenna, honey.
My mom always tells me that I make people happy.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great quality to have. You know, if your friends are not having a great day, here comes Jenna to make you feel better.
Ella Walker.
I chose generous because I always offer things in case somebody loses theirs. If I have the thing that they lost, I would let them borrow it. Or if in case they forgot, like they don't have a marker at school, I would give them my marker.
Nice. So you give people things if they forgot or maybe they lost it, you let them borrow it. Nice.
I picked strong because whenever my dad is at the grocery store and my mom needs to move something, she always calls me over and asks me to move it.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. I had a third grader who said, who picked strong also. And he said that, he's like, Mr. P, whenever my family likes to have a lot of fire pits. So whenever we have a family fire pit, my dad makes me carry the logs from where the logs are in our backyard to the fire pit. And you have to be strong when you carry all the wood.
I'm responsible because I take care of my dog every day. And sometimes me and my dad groom her, we take baths for her, and we trim her and cut her.
Ah, okay, so you're being a responsible dog owner then, right? You're doing what's required when you get a pet, right? You're supposed to take care of them.
Mr. P, I'm also strong.
And you're also strong? There's no doubt about that.
Not that anyone's counting, but after 559 remote PE classes Elementary staff are excited to be back in gyms and on fields with kids.
I'm hoping there wasn't 6 minutes of silence because all I saw was the video. You know, one of the things I'm most proud of is the collaboration within the team, right? You have 4 specialists across the district, 4 different buildings, and through some of the structures that we've developed, we've got horizontal calibration, vertical calibration, and most importantly, our teachers are connected with each other for the betterment of the kids. I see Mr. Sawyer and Ms. McDonald on the call and wondered if they wanted to say a couple words, maybe takeaways from their experiences with the kids. So Mr. Pfeiffer, Kevin Sawyer, and Amy McDonald, I believe, are on the call and might need to be unmuted. Or
They can just, if you guys just raise your hands, I will unmute you. Let's see, Kevin Sawyer. There we go, Mr. Sawyer.
Thank you very much. Just a couple words. Thank you, Greg, and thank you to the school committee for allowing us to present this. I've been teaching here a long time. This is my 18th year, and I've never, ever had the opportunity to get to know our students one-on-one, and that was just an absolutely incredible week to learn each and everyone's superpower and what makes him or her special. It was just awesome because, you know, in our regular day, I'm on the go the whole day, one class to the next. Even during my lunch, I really sit down. So this was an absolutely awesome opportunity to just get the kids' reflections about themselves and to really learn a little bit more about them. You know, we learn a little bit about them all the time, but not like it was that week. It was just really refreshing and really neat to learn what made them special within themselves. In lots of the boys and girls at Cushing, they didn't have a problem talking at all. Multiple boys and girls told me many qualities that represented them. And I always shared with them one of the qualities that I saw them doing, having taught there, so long and having them all the time. It was just really, really nice to take a step back and have them share with me how special they are, that, look like, they're superheroes every day to me. I tell them all the time, you're my superhero. Just share with me what those qualities are. And that week was absolutely awesome. Of course, by Thursday or Friday, I was exhausted talking, but it was totally worth it. It just brought a smile to my heart in my face, and it was just really a nice pleasure to learn and have them, tell me more about themselves. I mean, it just was really nice lesson all around. Thank you, Greg.
Okay.
Thank you, Kevin.
And this is Amy McDonald from Jenkins. And just going off of what Kevin says, my favorite part of the job is building relationships with students. And I think we have a very unique job where we get to see and meet every student that comes through the building, and we have them for many years. And although we see them for lots of years, we only see them for 45 minutes every week. So building those relationships can be tough. Like Kevin said, we're on the go. Our job is obviously to teach them fitness, motor skills, personal social competency, keeping them moving. But like you said, that was a very unique experience. And I felt grateful that I was able to learn about see students in a different light that maybe I wouldn't have seen before. And some of the comments just that I heard from students who probably wouldn't have spoken up and told me that randomly during class was pretty sweet. It was a good feeling. I left my heart, like Kevin said, made my heart feel great after every class, just hearing what those students brought to the table and how they view themselves.
Yeah, I just want to close with, I think the authenticity that you saw in that video, the sincerity of the kids and the reactions of the teachers, kind of demonstrates why this profession is amazing and why we're lucky to be where we are. So with that, I can't wait to do that in person next year. Remote, thanks for the idea, but we're moving in person. So I appreciate everyone's time. And if there's any questions, feel free to ask. We're going to continue to innovate and do great things, though. I appreciate it.
No, thanks. That's great. Again, we love, school committee again. We love to see how involved the kids are, and all those that were included on that video seemed very involved and excited to participate in that type of activity. And I think the kids like to talk about themselves and to give them the opportunity to. So it was good stuff. And you said it. So this is the first time you've used this. And would you continue this when they come in person?
So
Next year?
I think one of the biggest pieces what allowed us to create that. What allowed us to create that was embedded time during the week for us to continually talk, collaborate, reflect, and innovate. And during the remote session, we had a nice little window of time on Wednesday mornings when we all were available to talk and calibrate and reflect and innovate. And it was awesome. So I think it's one of those pieces where when teachers have time and they're given direction and the space, awesome things happen. And we saw that happen pretty much the whole year. I mean, that was just one example of what I think was awesomeness from, when you think of PE teachers, you don't think of remote learning. Like It's the exact opposite. Like logic would tell you they're like with kids, they're moving, they're active, they're running and gunning, right? And then this was a huge shift that everybody had to go through, not just PE teachers, right? It was everybody needed to do it. And I'm just really proud of everyone's efforts, but needless to say, I'm happy that it looks like we're turning the curve and rounding home on this pandemic and getting back in person, because it's only going to make us better. Half the things that we did, whether it's animated GIFs or being able to pre-teach content ahead of time, there's a lot of things that we created this year that can be used proactively and as, either formative or summative assessments. As my phone rings here. Sorry about that. That's the house. That's the landline. Sorry.
That's good stuff. Any other comments by the committee?
No, I just wanted to say to Greg, well said, Greg, and thank you all for that, Kevin and Amy. Appreciate hearing your points of view, and that was an awesome thing you put together.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again. Keep up the great work.
Yeah, I want to say thank you too. It just more evidence of how awesome our teachers are and how innovative and how thinking outside the box in these tough times. So thank you.
Yeah, and then Greg, even going as far back as field day last year with the elementary schools up through now, seeing what the PE teachers put together, it was a great job overall, and they should be very proud of the work they did.
All right, great. Thanks again, guys. Keep it up.
Thank you.
All right, moving forward in the agenda, we are to the student report. I think we have at least two. So I'm going to kick it off to Johnny and then hand it over to Celia. And Rosie would follow if she is on the Zoom. Johnny, it's all yours.
Thank you. So first of all, juniors have started Naviance training for post-secondary prep, which marks the start of a very exciting chapter in our lives. And then spring sports have officially started today with the fall 2 season coming to a close. Baseball, softball, tennis, lacrosse, and track and sailing have all been approved and are ready to begin their seasons. And I'll pass it over to Celia. Thank you.
Yeah, our first week of in-person learning went well the week before break, and it went well again today. I think students are excited to see the other half of their peers that they haven't seen in a year. And lots of us agree that it's like the first day of school all over again, which is kind of a good thing. It brings new excitement, which is unique in the way that that doesn't happen every year. Also, various exciting events happened in the past week before break hosted by Student Council. And this week we have a Stress Less, Laugh More week hosted by the Happy Club. So there's a lot of school spirit and a lot of school pride, and we don't have too much else to say other than that because we did a break last week, but I think coming back to school has been good and there's a lot of effort to make it a really positive experience by both clubs and administration and students too. And that's all.
Great. And I'm sure Rosie is here. Rosie, are you here? I don't think so. Okay. Thanks. I know Johnny said it's tough. It's just got back from vacation. Probably forgot a little bit about what was going on in school, but we always like to hear from you guys. And it's exciting. Like you said, Celia, it is. It's kind of first day of school all over again. I think you've had, I don't know, several first days of school this year, and it does kind of keep the excitement up a little bit. But hopefully we can keep this as the last first day of school and finish up the year strong. And again, thanks for your reports, and we'll look forward to Am I frozen? Yep, I'm back. Sorry. All right, thanks, guys. All right, next agenda item is.
My Wi-Fi was out. May I ask the kids a question?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
And anybody could answer, but I was just curious if whether kids are talking about getting vaccinated.
Let's see. Is Johnny? Any comment?
Yeah. Yeah, I know I got my my first vaccine, my first round of Pfizer, and I know a lot of my friends are talking about it because, you know, especially what in the upper grades, a lot of people are working at, you know, essential jobs. I know a couple of my friends work at restaurants and stuff, so we're all hoping to get the vaccine soon, and I got it because I have asthma, and I know a couple of my friends have, you know, conditions like that, where they're allowed to get their vaccine. So yeah, I think we're all looking forward to being vaccinated, and, you know, hopefully getting to a point where everyone in the school is vaccinated. So
thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on the agenda. So our next item is some exciting news that obviously was announced the week before vacation. And it's regarding our submission to the MSBA for a potential new elementary school. Before I introduce that, I just want to, you know, just kind of mention that this was the second submission that Scituate had made. We did make the finals on the first submission, and then the most recent one, we did make the finals and were ultimately submitted. But I think, just like anything, we need a little bit of push. You need some folks who are going to work on your behalf. And I believe that what pushed us over the edge into the acceptance field was our support by our local representatives. So I know I had asked Senator O'Connor to attend, and he is on this call as well. I also invited our representatives, Joe Machino and Patrick Kearney. I believe that they are unable to attend. I did have some dialogue with Patrick Kearney, who was like triple booked today. But I know it looks like he has representation here in the form of Katie Baxter. So thank you for attending. But I wanted to introduce Senator O'Connor, have him say maybe a few words on the process, how he supported it, and then ultimately hand it over to Dr. Dutch, who will give one of his well-reviewed prezzies on the process. But again, I just wanted to kick it off, I guess, with Senator O'Connor, if you'd like to say a few words prior to that presentation.
Sure.
Senator O'Connor.
Thank you, Chairman Gates. Thank you to the entire school committee and to the administration. I see Superintendent Burkhead on here as well. An honor to be able to be on here. Before I start about the MSBA process, just wanted to really thank you for all the work that everyone on this screen has put in, educators, administrators, school committee members, parents, students, everyone during these incredibly challenging times. It's great to hear from the 2 student representatives that, it's a new normal, but things are getting back to normal and people are getting injections, and hopefully, this will, the light at the end of the tunnel will continue to get closer and closer as we go on day by day. So I just first wanted to extend my appreciation to all of you for all that you're doing. I know firsthand that this has not been an easy time. And on the MSBA process, this is great news for Scituate. We did not get the statement of interest approved during the last round of funding through the Massachusetts School Building Authority, but they understood the need. They saw how old the buildings were and how much need was required to put them up to a standard that would be adequate to provide education for the children of Scituate. And they saw what we saw down in the community, that there needed to be significant investment made into at least one of the schools, but realistically probably 2 of the schools. And this process opens up that conversation that can happen at the town level. And I know that, as you said, Dr. Dutch will get into the more specifics, but we've been working with a very similar set of circumstances in Weymouth. And since I've been the state senator for the past 5 years, we were able to secure money, $57 million from the state for a $164 million middle school project that we're doing. And it actually holds the same sort of uniqueness that you're about to experience and embark on, where we're combining 2 of our middle schools into one, where this could be a process where we're combining 2 elementary schools. This is a long process. It's not easy. It's done deliberately to make sure that every single I is dotted and T is crossed, and to make sure that we come up with the best product and result that the community wants and that the state wants, and that we can give as much financial resources from the state level to the community. And I'm just really excited about it. I think that it's something that is long overdue. And I think that the vision and leadership of the school committee and Superintendent Burkhead has really, brought us to where we are today. I know that Chairman Gates, you had thanked us. It's really, an honor for myself, Representative Kearney, and Representative Moschino to be able to support local projects like this. It's really all of you and the boots on the ground in the community that make these things happen. And, just really honored to be able to partner with you on the first step of this. And I really look forward to, the next 3 or 4 years as we go through the process of the MSBA approval, as we go through what will eventually, in my opinion, probably be a town vote unless they can fit it inside of their debt exclusion. And, from there, the community groups that'll be established. And it's really good. It's good to highlight this stuff. When we did it in Weymouth for the Yes on Chapman campaign, it was great to bring the community together to rally around our kids and say, we want to invest in you. We want to pay more in taxes so that you have a better opportunity, a better learning experience and environment to grow and to become whatever it is that you want to become in life. So it's been great to be able to work with you. I'm more than happy to be a direct point person, as well as Representative Kearney and Moschino, to make sure that we do this process as diligently as we possibly can and get to a great end result that the community and the state can be really proud of.
Great, thank you, Senator O'Connor. No, I think, again, I mentioned to Superintendent Burkhead, I'm a new chair of the school committee. Superintendent Burkhead is a new superintendent, and we both feel it's important to bring our local representation into our school committee, at least on an annual basis, just to get their perspective and show that you guys are out there supporting what we're doing. So thank you for your participation and helping this project along. But yeah, like you said, it's the beginning of a long process, and we'll be in regular contact, I'm sure. So with that, Dr. Dutch.
Okay, let me Chairman Gates.
Yes,
Well, Dr. Dutch is getting set up. Can I just interject real quick? Because I know Senator O'Connor is probably going to have to jump out after Bob's presentation, but I just wanted to personally thank him for being here tonight and supporting the project behind the scenes, but also publicly, and taking time, him and Representative Kearney, to come out and actually visit the schools. That meant a lot to me, and it meant a lot, I know, to our principals, Ms. Ward, Ms. Moffitt, and Mr. Dillon, and Dr. Dutch that went on the tour. That they came out, they asked a lot of good questions. They saw for themselves the need, so that they know when they are out there supporting this, they've seen with their own eyes. So that meant a lot to me to personally come out to see that, to mix in with the teachers, the kids, and the administrators, and see what they're living on a daily basis. And I think that goes a long way into garnering, my support for them and what they're doing for us. But I wanted to point that out. And I know Representative Kearney can't be here and Representative Moschino can't be here, but they've also been helpful. But Senator O'Connor, thanks a lot for all you're doing. And I know you're doing this and got the experience in Weymouth, so I'm sure we'll be picking your brain on this, and looking forward to having someone with your experience in our corner. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent. So I'm going to walk you through the MSBA process, which, as Senator O'Connor mentioned, is a lengthy one, purposefully. They want to ensure that we are doing things the way we should to garner the best investment as possible. So this will walk you through the process. There are phases to this. Once you have been approved, your statement of interest has been approved, you go into phase 1, which is the eligibility period. I'm going to spend most of this presentation speaking about the eligibility period, because you can't move on to anything else until you've completed that and been approved to move on to phase 2 and 3, which are the feasibility study and the project team. After you complete the feasibility study, they then approve you, hopefully, to the next phase, which is the schematic design. The feasibility study takes you through the process of identifying what are you going to build. Is it going to be a single school that consolidates Hatherley and Cushing? Will it be a single school that simply replaces Hatherley? Or will we be doing remodeling on either or both schools? We've already had a small feasibility study through the statement of interest that outlines what the best path was at that time, but they'll look at some data and information that I'll describe in the eligibility period. Once the design has been completed and approved, you move into the project scope and budget, as well as the project funding agreements, which identifies the approved costs and what your percent reimbursement will be from the MSBA. And then the design development, the construction documentation, and bidding of the job is the next phase. And then finally, phase 7 is actually putting a shovel in the ground and getting the process where you start to see some outcomes. That generally takes about 1.5 to 2 years, depending on the scope of the project. And then phase 8 is project closeout, and that takes quite a bit of time. And just to give you some context, the Gates Middle School is still in project closeout. And you know that building's been open for a couple, possibly 3 years at this point. So you know that takes a while to get the project closeout. We'll focus on the eligibility phase, which is the eligibility period. You have 270 days from the start of that period to complete all of the deliverables. And the commencement date or start date is July 1st. And that's determined by MSBA. The eligibility period has 5 major steps: initial compliance certification, development of a school building committee, completion of an educational profile and the enrollment process, maintenance and capital planning documents, and I'll go through each of these, and then local authorization of funding. So step 1 is the initial compliance certification. It is due within 30 days of commencement, so July 30th. It's simply certification from the town and the school district that we will be in compliance with all of the requirements. It's signed by the chair of the school committee, the town administrator, and the superintendent. Step 2 is the formation of a school building committee. That's due within 60 days from the commencement on August 30th. It includes all decision makers and approval grantors, and I'll share with you who those people are. So it has to have the following at a minimum: the local chief executive officer, which would be the town administrator, a school building committee member who is certified as a procurement officer. It's generally the business administrator, but it could be anybody who has an MCPPO certification. A building level administrator, the superintendent, a school committee member, a school principal would probably be the two principals from the two schools that we are looking at. A local budget official, which could be the town accountant or a member of the advisory committee in Scituate. Anybody who's knowledgeable of the district's mission. Members of the community who have some background in architecture, engineering, or construction. And then a local official who is responsible for building maintenance, and that would probably be the facility director, who is Kevin Kelly at this point in time. Those are the minimum requirements for folks that would be on the committee. Step 3 is completion of the educational profile questionnaire. That's due within 90 days on September 30th. And I'll go through what those are. And then the enrollment form. There's a second enrollment form that's a little bit more detailed. That's due in 180 days, which would be December 30th. Actually, I think it's December 28th. That includes the science certification, the design enrollment versus the study enrollment, and we'll talk about those here. A meeting and a certification with MSBA. So the EPQ is a document detailing current proposed proposed educational facilities, how we teach, current grade configurations, and what we offer. Because these are elementary schools, I think it's pretty straightforward as far as what we offer, but there's a lot of options as it comes to grade configurations. The enrollment projection looks at data. They'll use a historic enrollment data. They'll look at possible grade configurations, as well as local issues that could impact our school enrollment over time. Housing developments, so community growth, migration patterns of students. Are there private schools, parochial schools, or charter schools that will be opening or closing that could impact us? And then possible consolidations, which is what we're looking at. And hopefully the feasibility study shows that that's the best path forward. Efficiencies affecting our current model of educational delivery. Policies on class size, which we do have. And then anything else that the district may believe affects enrollment. So you can see it's a very comprehensive process to be able to move forward into the feasibility study component. Step 4, we've got to provide detailed information on our maintenance and capital planning. That's due within 180 days from commencement. The maintenance and capital plan, what is it? We're going to submit documentation that shows that we actively perform routine and capital maintenance, including it's appropriately staffed. We have a written maintenance manual. We have predictive maintenance and preventative maintenance. There's a work order system in place. We budget for maintenance. That we have some method of measuring the condition of our facilities. That we inspect the buildings periodically. That there's a long-term facility capital improvement plan. That we have staff in the facilities involved in the capital projects. And that there is a segregated fund within the town. And I can tell you that in the short time that I've been here, these all do exist to varying degrees and shouldn't be a problem for us to demonstrate that we have these in place. Step 5 is an approval from the town through town meeting that they will pay for funding the feasibility study. They're not agreeing to pay for the project as a whole. This is only to pay for the feasibility study, which could cost anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000 for a project of this size. So it's a fairly significant undertaking, part of which is reimbursable. And there's a formula that they use, and there are opportunities for additional percentage points to be gained in the reimbursement process. So the two things, excuse me. So these are just narrative regarding those. A vote of town meeting that confirms the community authorizes funding to be able to proceed. And then the feasibility study agreement says that we've identified an architect to assist us with the feasibility study, and we have a contract ready to go if we're approved, and it identifies how the district will be reimbursed and at what percentage for the feasibility study only, not the project as a whole. But just these are the dates summarized for you. Commencement date is July 1st. We've identified these specific due dates for each of the components. And then finally, I just want to make sure everybody realizes that the length of this process, the MSBA will not decide to, will not vote to move us into this next phase, which is the feasibility study, any sooner than July 1st, 2023. If we do not complete our eligibility period deliverables by March 28th, we have to go back into the statement of interest process. So it's very important that we get all of this completed in the timeline that is available and laid out for us. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Dr. Dutch. I think that was, I think it's a great overview. I know that some of I think Mr. Long and Mr. Hayes were on the school committee when the middle school went through the MSBA process. So they're probably more familiar with it than are the rest of us. I'm going to open it up to the committee for any comments or questions. I have a couple that may not be asked, and then we can go from there. So anyone on the committee with any questions?
I have a question. I'm not sure we can get the answer to this yet, but vaguely, have they given somewhat of a timeline in terms of best case scenario, how quickly things could come to the final phase, or, like some sort of a range of time from now until the building would open?
They haven't given that information. I mean, when you consider that you can't move into the next phase until July of 23, you're already 2 years before you can start anything. Generally, a building project like this takes about 5 years from this point, from the eligibility to opening. The construction phase is 1.5 to 2 years, depending on how good your OPM is and how good the construction, the general contractor is that you're working with. I've seen some come in ahead of schedule, and I've seen others that are 6 months behind schedule. So it really depends, and whether we end up going with one school or two, because that will change the size.
Nicole, in my experience in the high school, Jenkins, and middle school construction progress is after that due date for all the information to allow MSBA make the determinations. I believe they generally give out the awards by the end of that calendar year. So that would be December 31st, 2023. So, and then you're in a timeline where you're probably occupying the building 18 months, 2 years later.
That makes sense. I had another question about the feasibility studies. So the work that's already been done with that, and when we submitted originally for the MSBA approvals, it was written a certain way from that feasibility study to kind of within the direction of one building and combining the schools. So are we backing up to reconsidering that pattern, or are we going to go back and redo all that work? Or I'm just curious where that's.
The next feasibility study is more in depth and provides greater detail and gathers more information than we did for the statement of interest. Just, from a perspective of time that it takes and the quantity and quality of effort. The feasibility study that you did for the statement of interest was $75,000. This is anticipated to be about $250,000. So you can see that, you're more than 3 times the amount. So you're looking at more than 3 times the effort. That doesn't mean that they won't use what's already been done as a baseline to kind of jumpstart and not duplicate effort, but utilize that information to gather more detailed information and a broader survey of the community.
Any other comments or questions from the committee?
I have a question for Dr. Dutch. So we missed out on the last spring because COVID kind of decreased the amount of tax revenue that the state had. So because we're accepted now, does that mean like we're not at risk for not being approved? We've kind of like passed that initial step.
Well, just because we've been approved for the eligibility period does not guarantee us of moving into the feasibility phase, the next stage. Until you get through the feasibility and get that next approval, there is still no guarantee. It's, there's obviously funding, but they have already identified the amount that we have preliminarily identified, recognizing that, the delay and the cost of construction and materials is changing as a result of the pandemic. So that may impact either the scope of the project or the cost, one or the other. The other uncertainty is how fast the others that are in the pipeline go through the process. Not everybody is going to complete the eligibility in the timeline that's required necessarily. So we may be the only one that gets things done, and then the resources that are available are more significant. Who knows?
All right, great, thank you.
Oh, sorry. Any other questions or comments?
Chairman Gates?
Yep, I have a, yeah, go ahead, Superintendent Burkhead.
I'm sorry, when your question is done, I would just be curious to know if Senator O'Connor, with his experiences, had any other input on any of those questions or guidance on those questions, just as he's been through the process. That's all, after you're done. Thank you.
Okay. I had two quick comments or questions, Dr. Dutch. First one is the eligibility period says that we need to vote the feasibility study by March 28th. So that needs to go before town meeting. So would we need to have that in our November town meeting?
Yes.
Okay. With that being said, have we, obviously it's only been 2 weeks, but I think that obviously you and Superintendent Burkett have really met the challenge of being transparent. Can either of you talk a little bit about how we're going to build our school building committee? I know that a lot of them are, very specific, but will be some town input. So how do you anticipate that we will I guess, attract those folks that may have interest in participating.
Superintendent, I'm going to defer that to you.
Thank you, Dr. Dutch. Yeah, I think the first thing, what I like to do is, Bob gave a list of the minimal number of folks in there. I think sometimes with certain things, if you have too many cooks, it's not productive and it gets overwhelming. I do have experience on a few of these committees with the Plymouth North build and the Monomoy build. So I think what you want on there is people that are, first of all, passionate, that want to be part of it. It's a lot of work and time. So you want people that are committed to that work and time. And then based on those lists that Bob had provided, a lot of them have kind of self-explanatory, like building principal, for example. We'd have our building principals from the two schools represented, obviously. But then where it gets a little bit more nebulous, where you can look at the community, for example, we'd probably put some feelers out there to see. There's a lot of professionals in this area that might want to commit that time and energy. So similar to, I think, what we would do for, any other projects where we're looking for volunteers is to, first of all, define what we want, need, make those clear to the community, and then have a process where we can vet those community members that want to commit to that time and energy to put forth, and then choose carefully based on that. And also I would do some research from what other districts are doing and what they've found successful. So I think it would take some time to look into that and what the ideal number and what kind of success people have had. And then based on mine and Bob's experience with these type of building projects, making sure that we have the right amount of people and the right people at the table.
Okay, good. No, I know that, we've had a lot of committees over the last couple of years. I think that, I don't think we're ever really sure how they are built. So it's just nice to know, and obviously you'll do the right thing. But what's interesting from my perspective is, if this building goes through, it's going to be for those kids who aren't even born yet. So it might be a chance for those, we've had a lot of turnover in our town with new families or young families moving in. It might be a way to potentially gain some, some input from those families, though they may not have experience in building and or schools, school profiles. It may give them a chance to get involved in the community. That's just the perspective that I saw, but I don't know if that would add any value. But I think it's getting the word out that this project's going on and developing a team, I think will be good.
Pete, if I could add to what
Yes.
it said from previous experience, we'll have no problem finding qualified residents who want to, with building experience, architectural experience, who would be more than happy to be part of this committee. And so I don't think we'll have any problem with that regard. Once, we start publicizing the fact that we will be forming a public building or a school building committee, a lot of people will show interest. And I would concur wholeheartedly with Bill that this isn't the type of committee where you want to have as many people as apply. I think our building committees in the past have been 12 and 13 people, and I think that is a good number. Too many people, it becomes very difficult to schedule meetings. And then that becomes a problem. So you want people who have the time or are dedicated and want to do it. It's not a committee where you're going to be looking, in my opinion, you're going to be looking for 50 to 20 people.
Okay. And my last question, Dr. Dutch, I don't know if you're aware of this or if we were given the correct information, but I know that there's been some discussion, obviously, as you mentioned today, whether we have, we're combining two elementaries, Hadley and Cushing, into one new school or a combination of two or whatever. But is it correct that in reality, we can only build one new school with this SOI, that we wouldn't be reimbursed for any additional buildings?
That's correct. If the decision was to try to build a new Hatherley and a new Cushing as two separate buildings, we would have to redo the statement of interest for Cushing, because that's not what's been approved.
Right.
In the Hatherley project, it's approved with an understanding that we're looking at consolidating. The reality is that, when you consider the enrollment at the Hatherley at, I think, about 285 students, Mrs. Ward, they're not going to spend $35 million for 285 students.
Right.
$40 million. They'd rather spend twice that, get a savings through the fewer number of custodians and less expense for heating and other utilities in one building, combining all the students, than having two separate buildings. Just more cost effective.
I think that's an important feature. Obviously, again, this is hot off the presses, really. But I think in terms of educating the public, which is our responsibility as well, is explaining that this, I guess, this SOI or this project really is for one new school building, and that the town will have to figure out how we want to do it. Do we want to, whatever, combine Hadley and Cushing? Do we want to make a district-wide, K through 2 or 3 through 5, whatever it is, but that's still out there. But really this potential reimbursement fund is really just for one new building.
That's correct.
Okay. And it is nice to hear that. I know that, as you mentioned, we did submit that feasibility study, but that's just really, hey, this is what's going on. This is what we think we want to do, but it's going to be done all over again. And I think that we'll get some good data from that to figure out what the community wants now, especially now we've been through a pandemic. People have a different perspective, I think, on our neighborhood schools and so on for what's best for our town.
Well, and I think that's part of what will happen in the feasibility studies. They'll look at grade configurations, and is it a K through 2? Is it, how are you going to you could reorganize all your elementary schools utilizing Jenkins and Wampatuck with the new building. I mean, there's a lot of options, and that's why you hire somebody to facilitate that process.
Excellent. Great. Any other questions or comments from the committee?
I had one more, Pete, if I may.
Sure, Mr. Hayes.
And it's because I see Senator O'Connor still here, and Superintendent Burkett and I have been talking since this process has started as to try to make this the first green building in Scituate. And is there any added incentive, or does a green building look better to the building authority than a conventional building? If you know.
So one of the things that we're doing now with the MSBA is we're giving added percentage points of reimbursement. That can be part of the package. Mm-hmm. So just to really hit on, first off, Dr. Dutch, excellent presentation. You took a very complicated subject and timeline, and you really narrowed it all down. But one of the things that the MSBA, and I know it was mentioned before about the sales tax, 1% of the sales tax is how we get our funding for that. But I wouldn't worry about that being a down year, only because there are projects every single year that get approved by the entire process of MSBA, but then the voters and the communities don't support them. So that money actually can't be then spent again that year. It always just gets carried over. So there's always a surplus of dollars that are carried over from the MSBA. And one of the things that MSBA wants to do is they want to give the community this money. Their objective is to get to an approval, and it's by working with the town very directly. And the experiences that I've had in the past, Hingham was approved last year. Weymouth was approved, I think it was 5 years ago now. The MSBA has just an excellent staff that works with the school committee and the building committee to try and make sure that all the deadlines are hit and that everything is done in a manner that once you're approved in this process, which Hatherley is now, that the MSBA is going to do everything it possibly can to partner with the community to get to a yes. And Mr. Hayes, to answer your question, there are incentives now to do a lot of the things that the state's looking at as far as more global statewide goals. One of them obviously to being reducing our emissions to net zero by 2050. So a lot of the things that you could do with the money you receive from the state and the taxpayers of Scituate to help achieve those goals are looked at very favorably by the MSBA to the point in time that we were able to get the reimbursement percentage, which was around 29 or 30% in Weymouth to start. We were able to get that up to 35% reimbursement by just doing a lot of the things that they had asked us to do. And in turn, it actually makes the learning environment a lot better for the students as well. And Jack McCarthy, who runs the MSBA, who I'm sure all of you will if you don't know, will know very soon, gave a speech the other day when we had our topping off ceremony. And I thought that it was great. He ended with a quote by saying that a school building is a building that has 4 walls and tomorrow inside. And it's a Lon Waters quote. And I thought that it's really indicative of the mission of the MSBA, is to really make sure that once we go through this process, the community, the state are on board, and we do what's right for the kids.
Great, thank you.
That's great. Mr. Hayes, thanks very much. I think that that's going to be a real possibility. I think it's a great, I guess, statement to make that we're going to try to make this as green, as efficient as possible. I think that making it the first green, I think that there's real potential from what Senator O'Connor said. And I think the town will be on board because we're really trying to make this push towards conservation of all things. So
Cool.
I think it's a great idea and
Bill-
this is the right time to bring it up at the beginning of the process.
Sure, and Bill, in my conversations, is that we're going to do more than encourage. We're going to push very hard for that.
Well, I think it's an easy sell. I think the folks in Scituate would be behind it. I really do. Obviously, there's some sort of cost, but an even bigger reimbursement. So hopefully it all works out. Good stuff. It's an exciting time for Scituate. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none. Senator O'Connor, you're welcome to stay on, but obviously you have more important things to do. We appreciate you attending, and hopefully we'll see you in the future.
Thanks, everybody. I'm going to grab some dinner, but thank you. And anytime you need me, just let me know. Happy to help out in any way I can.
Thank you, Senator.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving forward on the agenda, we have presentations, which are the curriculum presentations. We have several department chairs and curriculum coordinators who will be presenting. The first one I have on my list, not sure how the order was determined, but it is Tammy Rundle, school counseling.
Peter, little change of plans.
Okay.
All the curriculum coordinators could raise their hand like John Scopoletti, just so that they could be co-hosts, so you can we have a little shared presentation.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure everybody that needs to
Got
be
it.
co-host is one.
All right, so Seth will have to make them. If each of the presenters could just raise their hand using the Zoom option, scroll over your name on the participant field and just raise your hand, then Seth could make you a co-host, or I can just ask you to unmute. All right, Seth. You see those hands raised? Could you make them co-hosts, please? Greg, who's going to be presenting? Is there a PowerPoint?
Yeah, Patrick Newton is probably
Okay.
the most pressing one to be online first, because he's going to control the slides.
All right, I gotta get Seth. Are you there? Hold on. Seth runs like 4 meetings at a time. I'm working on it. Hold, please. I'm going to. Oh. All right, there we go. It is taking place right now.
All right, Chairman Gates, with your permission, I'll go ahead and get us started while we're waiting for the final folks. All right, great.
Go ahead, Ms. Scopoletti.
Thank you. So hello, folks. I am John Scopoletti. I'm the English department chair, and I'll be speaking first as a parent. And I just want to call that out, that I am the parent of a 3rd grader, a 4th grader, and also a 12th grader in Scituate Public Schools. And I just want to lead by saying that I am 100% confident that all 3 of my children are going to be ready for school next year. Right? In terms of this idea of a learning loss, I have absolutely no worries about that. And I'm really, as I said, 100% confident that teachers are doing everything to make sure that my kids are ready for next year. Obviously, the reason that I'm that confident is because I get to see all the behind the scenes work, right? And that's the work that's done by department chairs, by curriculum coordinators, by the assistant superintendent, and especially by the teachers. And I've seen the work that is happening now, the work that's happened in the past, and the work that will be coming up in the next few months. And Mr. Newton, if you could start that slideshow. And that's really what we want to focus on, is student learning and where we're at now, and also where we're going to be going. And really the goal for this presentation, and the reason that we're speaking with you tonight, is just to make sure that you walk away with this one big takeaway, is that educators are setting students up for success for next school year. And we're going to go into that and talk about some data. We're going to talk about elementary and secondary. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the next presenter.
All right, hi everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. I can only see one thing at a time. But Patrick Newton, Department Chairperson for Science, Technology, and Engineering for grades 6 through 12. And we just want to be clear that we have to recognize, as we're addressing student learning for this year, that the structure of the year itself has actually been different. We've had, or will have had, 170 days as compared to 180. We spent most of our school year in a hybrid environment, which, while we feel like we were effective, it is just different, and that deserves acknowledgement. So some of the different ways we've looked at things, and some general concepts of some of the things we've done differently, was we prioritized specific content and skills. And so what I mean by that really is that we have identified specific curricular areas that required a little more focus, and trying to make sure we hit the so-called most important concepts and skills so that students would be prepared to move on to wherever next year brings them. We've of course implemented new ways to instruct. We saw a great example of that from Mr. Ranieri in elementary phys ed just a little while ago. We've adjusted the resources we're using, certainly a lot more online, in My World in Science, a lot more virtual labs and things like that. We've of course also adjusted timelines and pacing. We found a lot of new ways to assess student learning, some of which are even more authentic than some of the things we had been doing in the past. And we had, as a district, established the idea of Connect 10 to make sure we were still getting to know our students, making sure students were still getting to know us and still felt connected to school even if they were at home.
Hi, I'm Liz Grindle, Math Department Chair for grades 6 through 12. I'm going to talk a little bit about secondary students, but right before, there's Kate Shula and Steve Sweat are still muted and don't have access to unmute themselves. So I was hoping that someone could help them do that.
Okay, just one moment. We'll
Thanks,
get them.
Peter. I appreciate it. I figured if I could talk, I'd talk for them for now.
Sorry, it's Shula. Seth, could you make Catherine Shula a co-host? And who was the other? Sorry.
And Steve Sweat, please.
And Steve Sweat. Okay, we'll make that happen.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Mhm.
So really a big question, how are secondary students doing? It's the reality that a lot of our cumulative testing and standardized testing doesn't happen until the end of the school year. So we don't have that data right now. We missed out on some of that data last year during the pandemic. But what we do have is some current data that we've collected. So for example, in the math department at Gates for grades 6, 7, 8, we're at the same point in the curriculum as the years past. Question, how could we be doing this? It's possible because there's less in-class time for assessments. It's true, we have been giving less assessments in school because we haven't had the opportunity to have kids sit for us. They also are getting immediate feedback on their homework, so there's less time spent in class going over the homework we have the opportunity this year. We've invested in an online program, IXL, that's given kids and teachers and families some different type of feedback that kids haven't experienced before. And also, now that we are back in school, we're happy to report that for both trimester 3 at Gates and at the high school for quarter 4, any projects or activities that were embedded in the beginning of the year or partway through the year, now we've shifted them towards the end of the year. Also, students who are in grade 6-3, they're either ahead of the content where they are or in the same place as last year. And then 14 out of the 15 courses taught at the high school level are just either 2 weeks behind, which accounts for our 10 days of school that we really weren't in school because the state dictated that and we were afforded those 10 days, or they're right where they were in the years past. So we're excited to report that for the math department.
And I'll speak about the English department, especially about some of our advanced students. I know that sometimes that folks have concerns about the AP exams. I'm happy to report I pulled out some calendars. I did some counting. In 2018 to 2019, students had 148 school days prior to taking the AP Lang exam. This year, they have 146. And the reason for that is we did a later administration 2 of the AP exam, and that helped offset the 2 weeks that were lost to the professional development days that we had at the beginning of the year. In other words, and again, forget about just counting the numbers, talking with the teachers, they'll say that they feel they're right where they want to be with these students at this point. And that's, again, as I said, this is for AP Lang and for that situation there. Just again, we don't have the hard and fast data yet, but that's just anecdote that's important for the ELA department.
And speaking for science, tech, and engineering, super exciting that at Gates for 6 through 8, we can say every science, technology, and engineering course is on pace to have covered all of the state standards that are appropriate for that particular course. And that's also true with 9th grade biology and many other high school courses.
Kathy Elich, the pre-K to 5 STEM coordinator. So looking at the elementary math data, as in the past, we did give the Symphony assessment. So that's, a benchmark assessment that we've been using in the district for a number of years. Kids are given a percentile score. We didn't use the data from last year because I didn't have a full set of data because in the winter we were in the process of giving the assessment and then we went into the remote model. We did give it in the spring, but the kids took it at home. So what I did is I went back to the 2018 data because that was a full year of data. And if we look at that data, the kids had started at about 62%. This year we started at 58%. So I think sometimes when people see those numbers, realistically, because of the way that this benchmark is done, it's a nationally normed assessment. Anything over 50% is considered okay. So we were at 58%. And then when we did our winter benchmark, we actually saw some growth, which we were happy with because it has been tough with it being a hybrid model. And we had the new math program this year. So I think the teachers have worked really hard. I do want to acknowledge the fact that the teachers, I think, have done a remarkable job. I look at 5th grade across the district, and the kids are doing so well this year with some of the concepts that are more difficult concepts. The number of at-risk kids this year went down by 50 students. So again, we were happy with that. We had a lot of kids that were at risk that moved into borderline. Some of those borderline kids are now okay. So overall, we're on track and we feel good with where the elementary math is currently.
Megan Gregory, I'm the pre-K to 5 literacy and social studies coordinator. When we're looking at the elementary literacy data, the first cluster of the bar graph you see here is our DIBELS data. We administer DIBELS 3 times a year to our kids in kindergarten through 4th grade. The dynamic indicators of basic early literacy skills, where we give 1-minute subtests to kids to find out where they are with those early literacy skills. The blue represents last year. The yellow is this year. You can see that we started about the same place that we did last year. We made more growth last year from fall to winter, but I just want to make sure that we understand this is a criterion referenced test. So it's not that the kids flatlined and made no progress. Individual kids all made progress. It's just that the benchmark is raised at each testing period. So the benchmark is higher and kids made progress, but they didn't make as much progress on DIBELS as they had in years past. So that's what that flat line on DIBELS looks like. The STAR is a more comprehensive reading assessment that we give to kids in 2nd through 5th grade. This is a nationally normed test, but it's nationally normed for the pandemic. So this is where we expect kids pre-pandemic to be. So currently about 75% of our kids are at or above where we expect them to be this time of year, as opposed to last time this year, we had about 82% of our kids there. We actually made better growth on STAR this year than we have in years past. Kids have really, elementary teachers are wonderful at taking kids where they are and moving them. And they did that this year. So the bottom line is, kids are making progress. It's a little bit slower than progress in the past, but we've noticed that those areas that look a little bit slower in the data, when you dig down, a lot of that is due to our kindergarten and 1st grade students are given assessments where they have to hear a word that the teacher is giving them and give the teacher the first sound or divide sounds. And hearing and listening and articulating sounds with both a teacher and a student wearing a mask is very difficult. So we're hoping that when we can be unmasked and show kids the difference between a short A and a short I sound with our mouths, that's going to be remedied.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kate Shula, Department Chair for World Languages and ELL, and we've spent a good portion of the presentation talking about how our students are doing. And it's really important to highlight what our educators are doing to track our progress with our curriculum and the hard work that teachers are doing behind the scenes to ensure that our students are well prepared for the remainder of this school year and next year. So we have been capitalizing on our current schedules and structures that provide our secondary educators with a great amount of collaboration time. And we're using that collaboration time to monitor our current curriculum pacing, as well as have conversations about student progress and where we can work harder to help our students make progress, and also celebrate where our students are making a great deal of progress. Each department is doing something formal to document our curricular adjustments that we're making this year. And those documents are shared among sending and receiving teachers so that we're in constant communication with exactly where our students are at when it comes to state standards and unit objectives. Each department's documentation looks a little bit different to meet our different needs, but we do have documents that are shared among educators with clear updates on where we are with our curriculum. In addition, this has been a great deal of the work that department chairs and curriculum coordinators have done this year. We are visiting classrooms, having conversations with teachers, using our department meeting time to have ongoing conversations with our teachers about where we're at with the curriculum, what still needs to be addressed, or what tweaks we need to make as we continue on this year and moving into next year. So a lot of collaboration behind the scenes with our secondary educators and tremendous work in ensuring we are where we need to be with our curriculum and pacing.
Thanks, Kate. Greg again. I think it's important to recognize that regardless of the learning model that we've been in this year, there have been embedded supports and interventions in place. From scheduled office hours at the beginning of the school year to sailor support Wednesdays most recently, whether it be enrichment block at Gates, H block at the high school, or the new Senior Harbor Academy at Scituate High School, educators and administrators are reflectively reviewing all forms of data to assist students both this year and prepare them for next year. Obviously, in recent weeks, there have been preparations for full in-person learning, which is the model we're in now, and we hope to stay in. The great news is that we still have a quarter of the school year remaining to work with students in person. So there's great opportunity ahead of us this current school year.
Back to me. So in terms of what the elementary educators are doing now, we'll continue with our benchmark assessment. So the kids will take those again in the spring. For math, that's usually where we see our biggest growth always is from the winter one to the spring. They've had data meetings and everybody has just kind of redone all their intervention groups at all 4 of the elementary schools based on that data that we had from the winter benchmarks. So, you know, they've set up their groups. So it means most kids like twice a week, if they need the intervention, are being seen by someone for either ELA or for math. At the start of the year, the teachers redid the curriculum calendar so that we have the pacing guides so that those focus standards, you know, we're making sure that we're hitting those across the year. So those were done for each grade level from K to 5. We had grade level representatives. So what Megan and I did is we had a teacher from each school, like a 5th grade teacher that would be a math representative or science representative. And they shared resources to the drive. They kind of shared where they were at so they could see that they were on track. They shared ideas in terms of instructional strategies that worked really well. We have the new math program for K to 5. It is more rigorous. As I said before, the teachers are doing a great job implementing it. We're seeing some good things, and we're really looking forward to the progress we're going to see with this program as we move forward with it. With this new program, we've bought in some pieces that go with it. So one of the pieces we have is the Edulastic assessment piece. And so we can make grade level assessments that are aligned to specific focus standards. We just completed our first round and we're looking at the data. And we actually like how these work. So next year we'll be doing more of those because it really allows us to focus in, like for 1st grade, we can really focus in on like a number standard, you know, for number sense. We can see where kids are at. So it's really easy as we're starting to look at the data now to really see which kids aren't quite where they need to be. And so what additional support would we need to give them? And then we're even noticing there's some kids, you know, what are we doing with the kids that are, they're knocking it out of the park. So we'll continue with those. The ELA for the elementary, they implemented the new Hegarty phonemic awareness program. So that's in kindergarten and 1st grade. And then they have the assessments and the interventions for any of the kids who are struggling at the elementary level.
Good evening, everyone. This is Jim Thomas, Department Chair of Fine and Performing Arts for our district. And the question that I have on this slide here is, what will secondary educators do? And that's really referring to April 12th moving forward, when the majority of our students are back in school in person learning. So to start, we'll continue with the supports and interventions that are currently in place that were discussed a couple slides ago. Teachers will continue to meet and monitor student progress. Sending and receiving teachers will collaborate to share curriculum gaps and gains and plan accordingly. And that will unfold particularly as we get closer towards the end of this year. Department chairs will continue to meet with educators to gauge curricular progress. And that takes place, as stated by Ms. Schuler, both informally and at our department meeting times. And the interventions that were mentioned earlier will continue as well. Beginning April 12th, in-person learning allows for more student-centered learning. And here's some examples from our core learning areas, what that might look like. So in math, obviously, we'll continue to build skills and content, but some of these strategies will focus on peer-to-peer feedback with reinforcement. In science, there'll be more inquiry-based learning in classes, probably through the usage of labs and the like. ELA will continue to focus on reading, writing, and speaking, but we'll also reinforce formal interactive discussions. World Language has redesigned their curriculum to be really focused on communication, and social studies will focus on writing skills in particular and students interacting with each other.
Moving forward, you know, what we're thinking about in the elementary schools are continuing to you know, give our benchmarks 3 times a year, and this is really what elementary educators do best. We take the kids wherever they are and we move them forward. We, assess the kids a lot. Our teachers really know their kids. They know, what their strengths are and where their needs are and where they need to fill in with gaps, and differentiate that learning. So we'll continue to, let next year's teacher know, in both with individual students and with classes where strengths and needs are, moving forward. We'll continue using our curriculum calendars, the Eureka math program rollout, and the Hegarty phonemic awareness. I am excited to report that we had a very dedicated group of educators who are on a foundational skills adoption committee that looked at a range of evidence-based phonics programs, thinking about some of those gaps that we saw in K and 1, and our group is recommending purchasing Foundations phonics program for our kindergarten, first and second grade students for next year. So moving forward, we'll be able to have some consistent phonics instruction and materials for our students. So, when we're worried about those gaps in those younger years, we're really going to make sure that we address those. And we'll continue to use those common math assessments that Kathy spoke about.
Hi, this is Steve Sweat, Source Studies Department Chair for grades 6 through 12. Just to sort of wrap things up here, students are prepared. Teachers are aware. We'll continue to make adjustments and be ready. We're all looking forward to a strong finish to this year, and we're all looking forward to a great opening in September. If you have any remaining questions, there's an FAQ on the department's or on the district website under the academics tab. And also, you're more than welcome to contact any department chairs if you've got specific questions about a specific discipline in particular. Just contact us by email. We're happy to get back in touch. Thank you ever so much for your attention.
Great, thank you very much. Everybody, it's kind of nice to have a presentation that's collaborated by everyone in the district. I think it's very rare that we get to see all the various department heads and curriculum chairs together. It's nice to see that. Yeah, I think it's a first. I'd like to open up to the committee. There's a lot of information there. I'm sure there could be a lot of questions. So I'm going to open up to the committee for any questions or comments they may have at this time. You could just start talking.
I'll start.
Sure, Ms. Lindblom.
I think, the whole presentation said to me that there's so much behind the scenes work that is being done to ensure that the kids are all, right where they need to be. And I think a lot of parents don't realize that. I know you guys are department chairs, but that's a lot of information and a lot of work that you guys are doing. So as a parent, I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I just want to thank you that was quite a presentation and a lot of hard work to put that together, and I appreciate it. I'm always very proud to see our teachers in action, and our chairs are teachers too. So they're teacher leaders at the next level to the classroom, and one of the reasons we have good teachers, we have great department heads and talented people, and I'm very grateful for it, and I thank you all.
Yeah, I agree with what's been said so far. I think there's a lot of great work going on behind the scenes, and I do appreciate all the department chairs coming out tonight and presenting this to us. I did have a couple of questions that I jotted down throughout the presentation. I'm not sure if this is for anyone specific, but anyone who wants to jump in, feel free. So one of the things that I noticed in the beginning of the year was, as especially the elementary school where kids were only there half a day, there were a lot of papers coming home, just that extra sheet to do for math, or letter sounds at the younger grades, or there's a big push to use things like Lexia. The middle school, the math program, my daughter did a lot of Quizlets online, and they really helped her prepare for the quizzes and the exams that she had to take. Are we, as a district, are we looking to do something similar where, we're working to meet those benchmarks, but we can give students that little bit more to just bring home outside of school and continue to reinforce the lessons that we're teaching inside the schools.
I'm happy to speak specifically. I think, and anyone else can jump in, but Mike, you brought up a little bit about middle school. I think one of the things that we learned, we don't have the benefit to have things at the math middle school or even elementary level like Dibbles or STAR. So we had to get a little bit creative. In the past, we were using a lot of like our free Prodigy or free Khan Academy. We were super thankful that the district supported an IXL. So the way, if you look from a parent perspective, IXL looks for like what they call a SMART score, and we say 80. It means you've met and mastered the material. One of the things you talked about is like that extra. We've allowed and we're encouraging kids if they want to spend the time, if they want to keep going to get to 100. It's not a percent score. So I think we are encouraging kids to do what works, but I think it's also a fine line. There's also, we've heard from, and you may have also, we've heard from families who say like, please, we can't do anything more outside of the school day. So I think it's really important. And I think we can speak, I see a lot of head nods for pre-K all through 12. I mean, we want to have a rigorous and supportive kids, but we also need to make sure we're paying attention to what's going on too. So Mike, I love your question. I think it's a great question. I think we're always working with teachers to figure out like what's like a good push, but a healthy way to support families too. So we appreciate it when we get feedback from you and from our families too, to say like, look, one more homework assignment and things are going to go haywire. So.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I meant more the optional work that kids could take on. Because you're right. When my kindergartner brought home that 10-page packet that you could work on during the week, some days I'm like, no, buddy, let's put it away and do it tomorrow. So I completely agree with you there. But it's just more making sure parents are aware that, you know, there is something out there if they feel like they either didn't like the benchmark score that their child got, or they just want to do that little bit extra to make sure, you know, their kid gets the, you know, the math questions and the Quizlet so that they're ready for the test, you know, the next day or the next week or whatever.
Yeah,
but I definitely appreciate the fact that there were some, you know, I heard from parents as well that we got enough going on at home that that extra sheet would definitely be, you know, we don't want to see it.
There's a hidden, I don't want to call it, you know, an upside to all of this because it's not an upside, but a lot of teachers were forced to start looking at and developing and experimenting with resources they may not have been using previously. And there's definitely instances, I mean, I can think of one Gate science teacher who has told me several times now, this has really forced her to up her tech game. And I think teachers have found a lot of tools that they maybe weren't using before this, that they've said, you know, this really does work for my students. And I think we will see some of those kinds of things continue once we return to whatever normal looks like.
And I know this has been hard on teachers, and I completely appreciate that in talking to them and students as well. And I think that's one of the biggest things we can take out of this is, you know, we've taken the last year, we've tried to re-engineer education so that kids continue to move forward and we meet the curriculum, but now we have benefits that can help them in the future. And also, you know, I forget who said it, so I apologize, but we've had 10 less school days so far, but now we're meeting the curriculum, we're ready for the AP exam, so that little bit that we're doing now is going to benefit us in the future. Like Mr. Newton, I agree with you there. The other question I just had was regarding, you know, I know especially the middle school, high school, there was that Wednesday where a lot of teachers I started doing a great job of saying, hey, I'm going to be available. Here's my Zoom. I'm going to be here online for an hour if anyone has any questions. And I know we built some of that into the schedule, and this was alluded to a little bit during the presentation. But are we seeing, you know, now that we are in school full time, that we, you know, we are seeing kids that are having, you know, need that extra little bit of help going to their teachers to get the work, or going to, you know, whoever they need to, just to make sure that they are, you know, prepared for that next test, or, you know, fully grasping the work? Or is that are we seeing that start to slide a little bit?
I can answer that for you. So I would say we definitely are seeing students and staff using the enrichment blocks even more than they had in the past. So the pandemic, I feel like, helped us to understand what does it mean to provide structured extra help, as opposed to, kids can choose to if they want to or if they're not. It's allowing us to kind of put groups together to say, this group of students needs a little extra, or this group of students needs a little more, a push. And so we are using that time built into the schedule much better than we ever have been in the past. So we're happy with that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Principal Beatty. And the last question I had, and this is probably more for Superintendent Burkhead. I was just curious if there was any feedback from you from other districts in the area, just on any best practices that they've adopted and that we've either adopted into our own curriculum or, looking to adopt in the future, just based on their feedback.
That is a great question, Mr. Long. First of all, I want to thank the department chairs and coordinators for their presentations this evening. A lot of work has been done on it, and I think it's important. The way I kind of look at this and look at data and how we measure our students' learning and progress is, telling a story. I think they've done a really good job of, kind of like Dr. Dutch did with the MSBA, is not overdo it with so many numbers, but just to tell a story with enough data and anecdotal information to let people know out there very clearly that the default is not learning loss, it's learning gain, and it's really how much and to individualize it to every student. So I think that's something that I'm hearing from other superintendents as well, is the personalized learning is to really focus on how can we focus on individual students. I think technology is another thing that we're finding. I know some of our department chairs and coordinators have brought that up tonight, and that's part of our ongoing focus is in our focus next year is reimagining what education look like. Mr. Newton mentioned what the new normal. Schools will, I think, the overarching theme from superintendents and assistant superintendents that I've spoken with is pretty clear that the old way school was done is not coming back. And I think if you are doing that, you're not providing your children and their families with a quality education. We've heard a number of examples just in this presentation tonight on new ways to reach students and to support them. And so I think the exciting part is school will be better because we still have the great teachers and they're still here. And they've really talk about being resilient and adjusting to new schedules, new ways of learning, similar to families and students, right? Everyone's become adept at using technologies that they may not have used before, new teaching methods, new ways to support students. Another example is tonight's meeting, new ways to communicate with parents. I think our attendance on open houses and meeting with parents went up because we allowed them the option to do it via Zoom because they couldn't get to schools before with maybe they had kids at home to watch after or things like that. So these are all examples of creative ways that we've been making note of collectively as a school district and looking to implement next year. Tonight's a little sample to the community that, learning has gone on this year, that it's not a lost year by any means. In fact, it's exciting how much has been learned. And I think it's twofold. I think it's kind of learning academically, but I also think what we all wanted to parallel that with what instruction was being covered this year. And I'm not pointing out, and I think it's important to note that coverage is one thing. And we want to make sure that you understand that it's simply not covering the material, it's covering the material at the same depth as we have in previous years. So I do want to clarify that because I don't want people to have the perception that, okay, we just rushed through just to cover, say we covered. The teachers have done this. So we're looking at the curriculum we're looking at, and we're looking at the amount of knowledge the kids are consuming. In part 3 to the puzzle here of the three-legged stool, if you will, and we separated this out purposely, and you won't see it tonight, is the social emotional piece, which has been alluded to. Ms. Grindle brought it up with the balance between how much homework to give, what's the right amount of work to give students. And so that the next school committee meeting will be presenting on where we are finding our kids at in our school at social emotionally and what we're doing about that. We thought it's such a big piece that we wanted to separate that out. So that will be at the next school committee meeting. So those are some things that anecdotally that I'm seeing from other districts that they're, whatever we call it, reimagining education or whatever, I'm very optimistic that it will be better than ever. And hopefully we saw some examples of that tonight. And I know for a fact that parents will be seeing that with their children through the education through the rest of this year in person, through how we model learning and how we learn from that. And we're also always interested in hearing, you gave us a nice example, Mr. Long, tonight about being a parent. We want to hear from parents and our students about what works for them and what doesn't, because we're going to be using all this information to, refocus how we do that. And we're actually starting it now. We're not waiting until next year. So all this new stuff we're doing, we're implementing it now. The department chairs are overseeing that. And I want to thank them again tonight. And I want to thank, Ms. Arnold for putting this all together. And I want the community to feel very well assured that there's a great deal of learning here, and we're really blessed to have these educators. The frequently asked questions document also, I will say, is well done. We didn't want to go into too depth to that tonight, but I do encourage parents to look that over and to reach out to your teachers, individual teachers, but then to department heads for other questions. What I intend to do is take the snapshot of this presentation tonight, along with the actual presentation, and share it on Thursday Thoughts with our entire school community, so that anyone that couldn't make it tonight will have not only the presentation, because we know presentations, unless you are there on a PowerPoint or a Prezi are just presentations. So we'll include that this week, so that and also put up on the website the frequently asked questions, so that any community member that wasn't able to attend tonight will have this outstanding presentation and the message that kids are learning, and we're proud of how they're learning. We're proud of their resiliency. However, we also know that it is not the same, and we know it's not all kids. We're not, making pretend that that's the case. So we want to hear if your child's not growing how you think they should, and we want your input. So that's a reach out to all our families and caregivers to, please give us feedback, because we are listening and we are reimagining education, and we're looking forward to what next year brings.
Bill,
And Superintendent Burkhead.
If I may, Pete, those statements.
Yes.
Thank you for those. I mean, and in addition to that, it's similar to what John had said at the beginning of the presentation, is that there is still a lot of learning going on, and it is different this year, but it's getting better, and it will get better as we go forward, and especially better next year. And I just want to thank you all. I mean, it just amazes me the way that our school system has been able to pivot during this time. And it's due to the incredible talent and dedication and passion that we have in each building. And it never ceases to amaze me. And I just want to say that again, because it's true. I mean, it's very easy to see, and it's greatly appreciated. Thank you.
And Bill, I think you hit that point about this, the story of the student, dead on, because I mean, you're right. Kids can come home with a straight A report card, but if they don't have the depth behind it, or, a parent says, oh, well, the benchmark test they didn't do as well on, but they're getting the great grades. What's the difference? Is definitely a great point. And I can say anecdotally, for the parents that feel like their kids are falling behind and have reached out to their teachers, they've gotten great responses in terms of, well, this is what they can do a little bit more, or, this is what they need to focus on. So, I mean, Mike's point about our amazing staff is dead on. And, I think that's definitely helped move kids forward, or continue to move forward over the course of the year. I think this, like I said at the beginning, this presentation was a great help, at least for me, to see some of the things that are going on behind the scenes. And I do appreciate all the hard work that the department chairs and the people that put this together, went through to share it tonight.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I just want to echo everyone's sentiments. I think this is great. This is, something I think that, knowing that it was on the agenda, I was a little bit nervous to see. But you guys all did a great job, and I think that it shows, that the learning is continuing. With that being said, I just have a question. I think it's for Ms. Gregory. First of all, I want to thank you for, I'm just looking at this slide. It says kids are making progress, but at a slower pace than years past. So thank you for acknowledging that. I think, just mentioning that, I think gives folks credence that this is real data and that you've collected it and that you're willing to accept that, yes, we can acknowledge that. So I guess my questions are really around, how does that look? So the slower pace, does that mean that there'll be some additional supports put in place now and potentially for grades going forward? Or how does that support look more specifically, I guess, for those kids who are falling behind?
So those supports are happening right now. You know, our reading specialists have just, you know, did our winter benchmarks, sat with data teams, with teams of teachers, looked at where kids are and what specific skills they're struggling with, and put them in groups to give them support right now. So we're helping those kids who aren't meeting benchmark right now, putting them in groups with other kids who are struggling with the same concepts. And you know, that's what our reading specialists always do. And they're, you know, shifting this year because of, you know, numbers, but they'll continue to do that next year as well. And at a more global level, teachers will be doing that moving forward too. If we're kind of seeing a trend across a grade level, like, oh, wow, this group is really going to need a little bit more focus on phonics. We're gonna address that next year when they move forward after we look at the end of the year data.
Does this type of data, will it result potentially in additional IEPs or 504s, things like that, or is it different type of learning and falling behind?
So this, the data that we collect is pretty diagnostic and gets down to the specific skills that kids need to work on. And you know, our teachers and our reading specialists do a great job at targeting those specific skills. I don't anticipate it resulting in more IEPs because we're targeting those skills where kids are struggling.
Okay. Looks at that point. Can you still hear me?
You froze, so I didn't hear what you said.
No, I think that ultimately we'll see how this all, you know, for literacy and others, we'll see how all of this, you know, slight loss in learning or slight, you know, slower pace kind of looks first quarter or first semester or first term and second term of next year. I just want to make sure that I guess that we have those continuing supports at that time as well. And it sounds like we do.
We do.
All right. Thank you very much. I have one other question. I don't know if it's appropriate for this, and it might be for Mr. Newton and Mr. Beatty, but I know that Borndale is an important piece of the sixth grade. I don't know if it's curriculum, but I honestly don't know if it's curriculum based or just something that we put in there, but is that loss, I think it's for the current seventh graders and for the current sixth graders, is that experience going to impact their learning in Scituate? Is it something that we're looking at changing or potentially allowing the current sixth graders to do next year and maybe moving it up to seventh grade experience? Just kind of curious about that. And I'm not sure who could answer.
That definitely sounds mostly like a Mr. Beatty concept, but what I can say related to curriculum, Gates science teachers really appreciate the opportunity that students are given there. I would say that's used as enrichment or supplemental learning. And so it's not, well, the experience will be sorely missed because it is a great experience for those students. I do not believe they're missing any specific curricular content or skills as a result.
Okay.
And I think we'll be having conversations moving forward just of what are our plans with Camp Borndale. Obviously this year with health and safety restrictions, you can't have, you know, 200 kids crammed in a cabin, sleeping with masks on and things like that. But I think that's on the agenda for when it's the right time to go back to Borndale.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Thanks again, everyone. It's a really helpful presentation. I think that this is really the crux of this year and what we're waiting to hear on. It sounds like everyone's done a fantastic job. Thanks to the teachers, staff, and everyone involved in helping us get there. Any other comments or questions by the committee? If not, I will open it up to the public for any comment. I know we've covered a lot in this agenda so far, so this is the first opportunity for public comment. If you do have a comment, please scroll to the right of your name under the participant option and raise your hand and I will call on you. I am not seeing any. Is that true? Can anyone say differently? I see no hands raised. Wow. That's quite amazing. We covered a lot of important things tonight and we have no comments. All right, we will move right along. Under new business, we have the elementary schools return to school update. We have the elementary principals. And if you are not a co-host currently, just raise your hand using the option in the participant field and I will unmute you.
We did not. I'm just looking so I can share.
Are you able to find it, Julie? Because I just brought mine up too.
I have it. Thank you.
Great.
I thought I had it all set. I apologize. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, as you just heard from our colleagues, that they really did an amazing job giving you information on the nuts and bolts of all the education that is happening within our buildings. We thought that we would just take a few minutes just to update you on the pieces of the structures of having students return to full day. We are thrilled that we are back in full day. Kids are happy to be there and we are happy to have them. Along the way though, we certainly have had our pieces that had to be dealt with. I can speak for Hatherley that we have 87 cars that now go through our parking lot every single day to pick up or drop off. But arrival and dismissal was one of the first things that we really had to tweak in order to have everybody coming in at the same time. We've been so lucky at Hatherley and Wampatuck that we've had a police officer has been supporting the street traffic so that if there are other people getting stuck in our backup, which is moving much more quickly now, the police officer was able to help though for other people. Students have been able to switch back to buses. We had quite a few students who joined the buses at the elementary level. Bus seats were able to be adjusted. I cannot say enough about Andrea Corcoran, who has that puzzle as a job and has done an amazing job making sure siblings are sitting together, students are still safe on the bus, and that we're closely following all of those guidelines. The same safety measures we had in place when we were doing hybrid remained when we came back to full day. Students continue to have a sanitizer when they arrived into the classroom and as well as when they are leaving the classroom. So arrival and dismissal had to be tweaked from years past and from hybrid. However, successfully, everybody is able to arrive and dismiss from school. And we've got it down to just that few minutes as it used to be.
Good evening. Something else we had to tweak along with arrival dismissal is our lunch and recess process. We have students seated 6 feet apart in our cafeterias, all facing the same direction. We have charts for contact tracing. They're sanitizing before and after lunch. They still have a choice of the hot or cold lunch like we were sending home earlier this year. And we have found that even though the time for lunch is shorter, it's been met with a great deal of success as we have 1 grade level per lunch now, where before we might have had 2 grade levels. Recess, we have designated play areas for each homeroom. Students will stay with their homeroom class and they're able to access the play structure, equipment, and they rotate through, they may rotate through those designated play areas. And then they sanitize again before and following recess. And we feel like the staff, the students have all been amazing and have done really a wonderful job of following the rules and everyone doing their part in order to be safe and keep things moving along. So this was another pivot we had to make with the way we served our lunch and had our recess, but it's working out well so far. And next is Ms. Moffitt.
Thank you, Mrs. Long. Our specialists were really excited to have kids back in front of them. It was really the highlight of the year after spending, as you saw from Greg Ranieri's presentation earlier with our PE teachers, they've done an amazing job as far as the remote is concerned, but there was nothing better than getting kids in front of them, and they continue to do a great job. Of course, we had to update our schedules, and so that was kind of a work in progress for us. For every special that is being offered, we are continuing to follow the DESE guidelines. It's all 3 feet social distancing. So what's really great too for contact tracing is our homeroom teachers have provided our specialist teachers with the seating assignments that they have in their classrooms, so that when a child moves to their music room or move to the art room, their seating arrangement is the same as it would be in the general education, so that it's made it easier for our contact tracing purposes. Again, teachers have been really great about training students how to clean their tools, their manipulatives, the equipment that they might be using. I know that in art, they are bringing some of their own materials, so they're carrying them to and from it. And of course, anytime we have an opportunity to have kids go outdoors, that's where we're having it. Instrumental lessons in person have started up again, and to the delight of the kids as well as the teachers. We've seen it both inside the building with appropriate spacing, small groups, or we've seen it outside of the building as well. And for our remote C students, our cohort C students, I really have to commend our specialist teachers across the district because even though there was a shift in how the times or the specialist teacher for some of the children in our cohort C model, all of the specialists across the district made sure that they took a couple of those 1 or 2 classes on for cohort C, so that the cohort C students still have a dedicated specialist teacher for their specials. And then, but their specialists are also teaching in person. So it's been really, really great. And it's been exciting to see, kids in the library again and PE happening outside. There's so much that has been happening with the art and the music program, and all following protocols, and yet kids are just delighted at all of the work that's happening there. So, and now I will turn it over to Principal Reardon.
Hi. So one of the many successes we've had in returning to full in person is also the number of remote students and families that have come back to the building. And, if you think back to August when we were planning all of this, right, and just trying to make the best decisions we could with what we knew at the time, we did have a lot of families choose cohort C. I think we had 90 some odd families in the elementary level. And I think one of the best decisions that we made was keeping all of those remote students on our class lists. So those lists were already created before we went into the hybrid model and the remote model. And we made a decision back, early on in all this planning to keep those students on those class lists. And Superintendent Burkhead was very adamant about creating a Connect 10 time to make sure that those kids stay connected to their buildings. And that took a lot of work on, getting teachers and administrators to sort of imagine what that looked like. And I'll tell you, I think that was one of the best things we did as far as making the transition from remote to full in person easier for those families. And I do think that was a big part of their decision in coming back. So these are just some numbers to look at. At Wampatuck, we had 33 remote or homeschooled kids in September. We now have 17 left in remote. At Cushing, there were 15 that were remote. They still have 12 in remote. At Hatherley, they had 29 remote students in September. Now they have 4. And at Jenkins, they had 21 remote students in September. They now have 5. So our remote classes, we still have a kindergarten class. We do not have a first grade remote class anymore. All of our first graders have come back district-wide. And we do still have a second, third, and fourth grade class, but those numbers have gone down quite a bit. So it's been great to see. I think it also does speak to how much the community does trust that the schools are safe, and that, you know, we've done a great job in this pandemic. The other thing is I can speak for Wampatuck, but I think I can also speak for the other principals in saying that even when the kids transition back, it has been a very smooth transition. You know, for the teacher, for the kids, I had one student come back today. He rode the bus in, got off the bus, just stopped in front of me and introduced himself. Said, I just need to know where my class is. And we were walking down the hall and he was saying hi to everybody and everybody seemed to know him. So again, I think we've done a very good job of keeping them connected to our buildings. So thank you. I don't know if anybody has any questions. We're happy to answer any for you.
That's great. Thanks very much. And again, I said this a couple of times over the past few months, but it's really nice to see the collaboration amongst, in this case, all the elementary principals. It's really nice to see that you guys do have a handle on what everyone else is doing, and it seems to be consistent amongst all the buildings, and that's what we've strived for. So thank you very much in that and in your presentation. With that, I'll open up to any comments or questions by the committee. Anything? The light night on questions. I think the presentations are just so thorough and complete that.
Yeah, it would just be more gushing over there.
No, I do think that the tone of this meeting has been really positive. The district is, you know, has exceeded exceeded many expectations, and I think that it's just really nice to hear all the positives that are coming out of it. So,
Chairman Gates, do you mind if I just add one more thing? Would you mind?
Yes, Principal Moffett.
I just want to recognize the families across the district, and especially in the elementary level. We could not have done all that we have done in getting our children back into school full time if we had not had their support, their guidance, and their feedback and input. They have been, you know, our PTOs have been instrumental in helping with this and helping prepare children to come back full time. So I just wanted to mention how thankful we are as a leadership team that we have the support of the community. It has made our jobs easier.
Great. I wish there were more community members on our call today. I think they're all still on vacation. I don't know.
And Peter, to Principal
yes.
Ward's point, I just want to point out, I mean, I've seen it at Gates and Hatherley. I mean, the Scituate Police Department has done a great job of just helping get cars in and out and kids crossing the street safely. They've done a tremendous job over the past couple of weeks, and they should also be recognized for the hard work they're doing. I mean, the principals have done a good job getting us as parents better at, you know, going through the car loop and getting our kids out in a timely manner. But I mean, they've been a big part of that as well.
Thank you.
I think the police have also been at the middle high school, correct? At least on occasion.
Actually, Chairman Gates.
Yes, Superintendent Burkhead.
Yeah, just to follow up on that question. Yeah, we've actually hired police at the middle and high school to assist with supervision and traffic flow. So they'll be there for the remainder of the year, before and after school.
Great. Any other comments by the committee? All right. Thanks very much again. Great presentation. Next item on the agenda under new business is school choice. Superintendent Burkhead.
Thank you, Chairman Gates. Each year, it's required for us to the school committee, to take a vote on whether the committee would like the district to be a school choice destination. So I just wanted to read the definition of what that is and then take any questions you may have. School choice program allows parents to send their children to schools in communities other than the city or town in which they reside. Tuition is paid by the sending district to the receiving district. Districts may elect not to enroll school choice students if no space is available. From what I understand of the history, going back in my records, is that historically Scituate has not participated and voted no each year on school choice option for a variety of reasons, including space needs, unpredictability, especially with this year of, our needs for our students and that live in the town. So those are some, being a principal in a school choice district, over the bridge, pretty much all Cape schools are school choice. I think I called it the Wild West. I think there's a lot of abuses in school choice, mainly athletics. And so that concerns me greatly. I think on paper, their school choice is enchanting and if done properly is a good thing. However, I think it is abused. And I think if the school committee would want to go that direction, it would take a lot of thought and research. I'd be happy to do that. But my recommendation would be this late in the year coming up now to vote no on this.
Open up to the committee for comments.
My
Say
only
that I
comment-
agree with Bill's comments. Sorry, Mike.
No, excuse me. My only comment, I agree that we've always voted no, and it would be interesting to look into it more closely, Bill, to see what, benefits there are, but we generally just don't have the space in Scituate to open things up, and it would put a great burden on the town to open up, especially with our space problems.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Hayes. And that's what my, just talking to people in the district that I've heard, and better than anyone on this committee. So thank you for that feedback. Just, a brief, as I said, my experience with it, the money you get for those kids coming in and school districts do it for money is pennies on the dollar. So you end up losing money because you spend more and you're actually giving up resources for the kids in Scituate. So that's just one of many, but I'll certainly look into it for next year and be happy to do a presentation on that, just to give you a more in-depth look at it and more data driven besides my anecdotal opinion for that.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I think, well, obviously this year, I'd say the next couple of years, it really, too many moving parts. I don't think it makes sense to introduce that program now. So,
I do
yes.
have a question about the school choice program, since Bill has experience with it. A district that participates in it, do they have the option to deny a student that wants to enter your district because of space?
Yes. However, you have to do it across the board. You can't, for example, I can't look at student A and say, oh, wow, I don't like his discipline. We don't have any seats in that class. Obviously, that's illegal. You would have to look and say, okay, we're going to open up school choice this year. We are closed for grades 3, 8, 9 because of over enrollment or capacity enrollment. So I think you set the criteria ahead of time so that people would know that we just don't have openings in these grade levels because of enrollment. So you could do it that way. And then if you do, let's say, go by grade, and what we used to do is, let's say at the high school, grade 9, we have 6 openings. If we would get 15 applicants, it's by lottery to choose those kids. So that's how it works in a nutshell.
All right, thanks.
Welcome.
Well, if no other questions or comments, I would entertain a motion by the committee.
I would make a motion that Scituate Public Schools do not join the program for the next school year.
What program, Mr. Hayes?
That we say we are not open to out-of-district students.
School choice?
School choice.
Motion by Mr. Hayes that we do not participate in school choice for 2021, 2022. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Brandolini. We will have a roll call vote. Ms. Lindblom.
Yes.
Gates is a yes. Mr. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
And Ms. Brandolini.
Yes.
Right. The motion passes unanimously. We will not be participating in school choice next year. All right, moving forward, the agenda, the very popular item of last day of school for this year, 2020, 2021. Superintendent Burkhead.
Thank you, Chairman Gates. So initially on the voted on calendar, the last day of school was slated for Friday, June 18th. We did have one inclement weather day, which bounces that day into the next week. As you know, we make those up. Interestingly enough, that next day would be Monday, June 21st, which happened to be an agreed upon furlough day for the district. So the last day would then go to June 22nd, which is a Tuesday. So that's where we stand now. My recommendation after speaking with staff, administrators, and getting a feel from parents is that it would be highly inconvenient for us to come back on a Tuesday and have that weird Monday off. If my recommendation would be to switch and make the Monday, June 21st, the last day of school, which would also not interrupt learning, would go Friday, and then Monday would be a half day for students, would be the last day of school, and then the 22nd would be the furlough day, in which all staff have taken a day with no pay, and so would ease into the summer nicely instead of having that odd day in between, which would be, in my opinion, and what I've heard in my research is that it would be an inconvenience for a lot of people to end school on a Tuesday as opposed to that Monday. So my recommendation would be to make the last day of school the 21st, and the furlough day would then be moved by default to the 22nd. And that would be the official last day for staff.
I think that's very reasonable and the common sense thing to do. Any comments or questions by the committee? If not, I would entertain a motion.
All right, I'll move that the school committee declare that the Monday, the 21st will be the last day of a half day and a last day of school, with Tuesday, the 22nd, a furlough day for the teachers.
Motion by Mr. Hayes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Long. I guess the only question, not to make it complicated, is no, Juneteenth is Juneteenth a holiday we need to recognize, Superintendent Burkhead?
Juneteenth is on a Saturday this year, so it does not impact school.
Okay.
It will be celebrated on the Saturday.
Okay, great. All right, so we have a motion and a second by Mr. Long. Roll call vote, Ms. Lindblom,
Yes.
Ms. Brandolini,
Yes.
Gates is yes, Mr. Long,
Yes.
and Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
Great, thank you very much. The last day of school, half day, is going to be Monday, June 21st.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item D, non-union personnel salaries. We're going to postpone that. I don't know. Do we need to vote on that, or can we just postpone it? Anyone, Mr. Hayes, Mr. Long? Do we need to? Can we just postpone that? Actually, it
I think
looks
in the
like
past we just
Yeah, I don't
postponed
think
it. I don't think we've actually had to vote it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. We're just going to postpone non-union personnel salaries till our next meeting, which is, I don't have in front of me, May 10th. May 10th. Thank you. All righty. Now to the exciting stuff, policy review. We have first readings for a couple of, or several policies, and then under old business, we have second readings of several. So I'll hand it over to Ms. Arnold.
Thank you, Chairman Gates, for that auspicious introduction. Yeah, this is the dry stuff, but important. So as you're aware, Scituate is undergoing, like many districts across the state, are in a group to undergo reviews called tiered focus monitoring, which, if you're familiar with the old coordinated program review, basically what it looks at, tiered focus monitoring, is all about focusing on what's best, what's most important, what works best for student outcomes. So it's divided into two things. They look at our elements under special education. So Dr. Bolbert is doing a lot of work in that regard. And they look at our elements under civil rights. Furthermore, we also have DESE also has a department called the Department of Educational Stability. And that's why we're here with these policies for a review, because there have been changes to the state regulations on specifically students who are homeless, students who are children of serving military, and students who live in foster care. So we met as a policy subcommittee back April 7th, I believe it was, and I presented these policies to Mr. Long and to Ms. Lindblom, who are our school committee members of the policy subcommittee, excuse me, and they approved these policies without any revisions, as they are mask policies as well. So I'll just give you a brief explanation for each one. JFAA, school admission, is basically, it's a little bit more elaborate than ours in the past. Ours was JFA, and specific to JF rather, and specific to these regulations about students who are homeless. One of the things in our old school admission was that we had to, students or families were required to produce proof of residency. Well, the state regulation is now that for students who are homeless, families do not have to present documentation of residency, proof of residency, if they are indeed homeless. And there is, under the policy for homeless students, education opportunities for students who are homeless, that outlines what the indicators are or the characteristics that are in place for a child to be considered homeless. So the difference in the school admission is to add a phrase that says, if you are unable to produce these documents, please see the assistant superintendent for further information. So basically the assistant superintendent, as the homeless liaison coordinator for the district, would be able to facilitate that registration for that family, for that student. So that's school admissions. Educational opportunities for students who are homeless. The thing that we had to do is we had to remove the item that said, it was number 5 on our previous policy, that said awaiting students who are awaiting foster care. And that's because now we have a policy that is all about students who are in foster care. And this again is what DESE would like us to do as part of our tiered focus monitoring. So the other thing about the homeless policy is that it gives the definition, just as I referred to those indices of or characteristics of students who are homeless, the conditions that would make them homeless, such as living in a shelter or a temporary residency with someone that they're related to or not related to, and there are a few other things. So that's included the definition, the specific indicators of homelessness, and some things about we had to include that students would be immediately enrolled and a few other parameters based on DESE guidance. And so that's extended that homeless policy considerably. It's a lot longer. For JFABE, education opportunities for military children, that one we didn't have at all. So we now have a policy for that as required. And then, as I just referenced, we do now have we're putting forward a policy for students who live in foster care. So the policies are included within your packet. Again, these are mask policies, and I'm submitting them, we, the policy subcommittee, are submitting them to you for first reading.
Excellent. Any questions? Any comments or questions by the committee?
I can just say that when we reviewed these, it was pretty straightforward. I mean, there wasn't a lot of questions or back and forth on the wording. Like Ms. Arnold said, it was very, we pretty much took the wording based on what Mask had provided and, just looking to add it to our list of policies.
Great. Am I frozen again?
No.
Oh, all right. I just reading quickly through on the JFAA, just the second paragraph, first sentence, just says proof of residency by the parent or legal guardian is required.
Right. Oh, okay.
It should be is required or will be required. Doesn't really matter.
Should be is required.
Okay.
I'll fix that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. And I know, Ms. Arnold, I know that you said it at the beginning. I know I didn't catch it. Can you just quickly explain again how we came to having to add and or amend these policies? Does DESTI reach out and say, hey, we have policies regarding these, or did we reach out and ask for them?
No, I want you to know I didn't reach out and ask for them. The way it happened is we are undergoing that tiered focused monitoring review by the Office of Public School Monitoring.
Okay.
So one of the things that there's another office called the Office of Education Stability, basically what used to be the homelessness office. And so we were selected for this review under that further review under that department. So that's why we were here with these.
Got it. And I know that you can't give too much information or Superintendent Berger, but do we have students that fit under these profiles, or have we had in the past?
Yes.
Okay.
Not a tremendous amount. I mean, it varies year to year. It really did not increase this year, which is interesting. I thought maybe it might, but we do have a few every year. Yes.
Okay. No, I think it's important for the community to be aware that that we do have students that come from these types of living situations. So it's nice. Well, it's helpful to be informed of that. So thank you.
Yes.
Any other comments or questions? This is the first reading. I'm assuming there won't be much commentary, and we can potentially vote on these after the second reading or at the second reading. All right. Seeing none, we'll move into our old business, which is our 3 policy reviews. So back to you, Ms. Arnold.
So at our last school committee meeting, when we discussed these policies, these 3 policies, the committee asked me to go back and revise some of the BEDH public comment policy and FFA memorials, and there was no feedback about IMB teaching about controversial issues. That seemed to be okay. However, for memorials and public comment, I did revise with the language that the school committee had suggested, and also sent them to Attorney Tobin for her review, and the resulting revised draft policies are from her with my information.
Okay, are there any comments or questions on, first on, well, you just want to go through each one, the FFA first?
Sure.
Sure. Are there any comments on that? Nothing?
No, I think, Pete, I'll just quickly say to thank Jen and Attorney Tobin for looking at these, and I think they addressed the issues that I was concerned with. So
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll say that, I was concerned about our memorial policy. Again, I said it before, we spent so much time on this policy, but I like the way this one reads better. It gives a little bit more definition and discussion. I think it really clarifies what can and can't do, or what memorials can and can't do. I was supposed to be working, or I was working in conjunction with Select Board because they're working on a townwide memorial policy. They have not responded to my multiple requests, so I don't have anything to say. I don't know where the status is of their policy. This one seems to read better for me. I guess my only comment would be if someone wants to, I'm sorry, I reread. No, I'm fine with it. I think it's much better than the original request. So thank you for reworking it.
I agree. I think it's clear, and I think the revisions are good.
Yeah, I guess the only question I would say is, as long as the principals are aware, because it does say here, if an individual would like to make a memorial donation other than a scholarship or perpetual award, the person must contact the principal at
I think that's a good place to start.
and I guess we'll have a third reading and a vote at the next meeting.
Great.
All right, so that's FFA. The next one is BEDH, public comment.
Peter,
Yes.
if we're all in agreement with FFA, can't we vote on it after a second reading?
We can,
Peter,
but
in
we
the
did not.
past, we voted after 2 readings. We don't need the third reading if we're all.
We can, but I don't think the agenda says vote. I think it just says discussion.
Okay.
I think
It says
that
vote. I think
does
it
it?
says vote.
Sorry, I just have the backup I'm going from.
Yeah.
Does the agenda have vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, then we can vote. So we can, we'll need to vote on each one. So we can vote FFA if you guys feel comfortable. And again, as you guys know, we can always revise these again. We don't want to, but I think that I like FFA. I think it's much better as it's written. So I would entertain a motion on
I
FFA.
move that the school committee approve policy FFA regarding memorials as presented.
Motion by Mr. Long. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hayes. Roll call votes. Ms. Lindblom.
Yes.
Ms. Brandolini.
Yes.
Gates is yes. Mr. Long.
Yes.
And Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
All right, policy FFA passes unanimously. Next policy is BEDH.
Move to approve policy BEDH regarding public comment as presented.
We haven't yet discussed it, Mr. Long, but that's okay. We can take your motion. I just
covered it.
BEDH. No, I just have a item number 1. It says at the start of each regularly scheduled school committee meeting, individuals will sign in for an opportunity to speak during public comment. Did we add that, or has that always been there?
That's always been there. Well, it wasn't sign in before in the old one. That's according to Mask. That's what Attorney Tobin had.
Okay. I don't have a problem with it. In fact, I think that it's good. My only concern, I guess, is that as we continue to meet remote, we don't have a process to do that. But I guess the remote process has been a little bit out of the ordinary anyways, just kind of do what we can. But I know that this addresses one of the items of folks nervous about or uncomfortable in providing their name and address.
Right.
So I don't have an issue with it. I just want to make sure that we are okay as long as we continue with these remote meetings, because we won't be able to do that. I'm assuming that we would be, but just wanted to make that comment.
We could always wait until we go back in person, Pete, to vote this, if that makes you more comfortable. I think
No.
most of it would be under your purview anyway. You know, you can, it's your meeting and you could.
I don't need to delay. I don't think I need to delay this policy for that.
I think we at the beginning of the remote meetings, you read the proclamation by the governor. And I would argue that remote meetings, it's easier for people to actually sign up during, like, right at public comment, because they have to raise their hand and we see who they are. That's kind of like signing.
We'll just have to going forward as we utilize this policy, or as we follow this policy, we will need a process, assuming we ever get back in person. I'm assuming that this list of folks would be provided to Jeannie in this case, so that she would have that data.
Right.
I'm assuming that this is what it's for, because generally it's for the notes. And then Jeannie, do we know, does Jeannie include that name and address in the notes?
Sometimes, I think.
I always
it's in the minutes.
have, unless it's, we've had a couple of people who don't want to be identified, and we write that they're not, that a person is not being identified in the notes, so.
So I guess trying to think of operationally, if we ever get back in person, what this sheet's going to look like and how the notes are going to read. That's all, but we can figure that out if you guys.
Right, and it'll probably be a sample in some material somewhere in one of the big books of instruction for open meeting law or something.
Yep. So we'll have to do that. I don't have an issue. I think it's fine. It's just going to change our process a little bit. The chair will have to remind folks if they want to do it. My issue is that I think some folks come to meetings not knowing if they're going to speak, and then if they don't sign in, then what do we do?
Well, I think it's, you know, it may not say it there, but pretty much in other places, there are a lot of things at the discretion of the chair.
Yeah.
So the chair could always, you know, make an exception or whatever. I mean,
and Peter, I actually read that.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Jen. I actually read that differently, where this is more if someone wants to come in and speak regarding the district's business, they can sign up before the meeting to have a chance to speak during the public meeting. I mean, that just says at the start of each regular meeting, but from there, you know, like Mike and Ms. Arnold said, I mean, the chair has the ability to just have open public comment, so we're not restricting anyone from coming in and actually speaking. So you're right. I mean, if they come in late, or, you know, something piques their interest, they didn't sign up on time, they would still have the ability to speak during public comment. This more gives them the ability to kind of reserve a spot to be like, okay, I'm first to speak during public comment if I signed up early.
Okay. Again, it's just an operational thing. I'm in support of it. I just want to make sure that we can actually follow it if we do. But if you guys are comfortable as a current committee that folks don't have to sign in and they can just do what we've been doing, then I'm fine with that. Okay. All right. So I'll entertain a motion then.
I move that the school committee approve policy BEDH regarding public comment.
Motion by Mr. Long. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Hayes. Roll call vote. Ms. Brandolini.
Yes.
Ms. Limblom.
Yes.
Gates is a yes. Mr. Long.
Yes.
And Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
All right. We have policy BEDH voted on and approved unanimously. And last policy, IMB. Ms. Arnold.
So this one was not changed. The school committee did not ask for any revisions. It's again a mask policy, and it's here for a second reading.
Okay. Great. If there's no comments, I would entertain a motion.
I move the school committee approve policy IMB regarding teaching about controversial issues as presented.
Motion by Mr. Long. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hayes. Roll call vote. Ms. Limblom.
Yes.
Gates is yes. Ms. Brandolini.
Yes.
Mr. Long.
Yes.
And Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We have 3 updated and revised policies. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next on the agenda is our leadership report by Superintendent Burkhead.
Thank you, Chairman Gates. A lot of what we went over tonight was part of what I had to talk about. Obviously, the update on our educational progress and growth by the department chairs. Also, our update on how our returning is going to full in-person learning with our elementary students. So I want to thank the principals, elementary principals, for that as well. I think those presentations were excellent and gave a snapshot into what's happening in our schools. And my other quick updates are we did get some information and some updates from DESE this week. And I know that I just want to thank Nurse Leader Roach, who on our vacation took those and put those together in a user-friendly manner to get out to our communities, the school community, including just a reminder as people traveled over the break that we strongly are encouraging family members to be tested. She provided links and information and contact information to her on how to do that if people needed help. So we appreciated that. The close contact guidance has changed to include people that were exposed to positive individuals in the classroom or on the bus only within 3 feet instead of 6 feet now. The caveat there is we still contact those students or staff that were in that circle of 3 feet to identify them, so they're notified. That was part of the guidance from DESE on that. And we're still notifying on a nightly basis. And over vacations, we notified, as you'll see tonight, a week's worth of updates so that we don't miss any days reporting our COVID numbers. I know that in the town administrator report this morning that the town numbers are continuing to drop. Our average is kind of plateaued in the schools, averaging about 8 a week for the last 4 or 5 weeks. And so we'll see how that carries out after our vacation week. Some really good news that free school meals will be extended through next year. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has extended the school meal waivers through the end of the 21-22 school year, allowing the continuation of universal free school meals at any school district throughout the state for the rest of this year, throughout the summer, and through next year.
Wow.
So I know we've had some questions on that, so that's really good news for all of our families in our communities. So we're excited to share that out. I want to give a sailor shout out to our community connections. We talked about getting all of our students back safely and strongly in our district. We've succeeded at doing that. Look forward to hearing the secondary update for your next meeting. But also we've started to offer some programs back besides sports and activities that we have at our school-based. Today started our YMCA program, in that collaboration and partnership with the YMCA, which some of our families have been starving to have for after school and before school support. We did surveys and worked collaboratively with the community and found out that the need was at this time only enough for about 1 school. Wampatuck is the host school for that right now, and they've been in the past. The goal is if the numbers expand, the need expands, we're willing to open those up at all of our schools. So it's a start, and there's students in those programs, a handful of students currently taking advantage of that. I want to thank Mary Ellen Gennaro. I don't know if you've met her, but she's an intern. She's doing her principal internship with us. I've tasked her to work with the Y folks on collaborating to get that off the ground. There's a lot of work that had to go behind the scenes. And so they can come into the schools and do so safely and within our school protocols, and also to get the communications out to the parents. So they're allowed to take advantage of that. So if there's folks out there watching or hearing this, obviously the Y is still taking applicants and students. If you're in the need, please contact your principal or local school or the YMCA, who would be happy to sign you up. And finally, the assistant superintendent search update. I'd like to thank Dr. Gary Maestas. who I mentioned at our last meeting, who would be conducting that search, overseeing that in collaboration with me, being a 30-year veteran educator and I think 15-year superintendent, retired. He brought a lot of credibility, stability, transparency to the process. Currently, we're down to 4 finalists in the process. I'm a firm believer, as you probably have heard me say, that ultimately it's not programs, it's people, and it's great people and hiring the best and keeping them that makes great districts. That includes teachers, custodians, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, paraprofessionals, administrators, soup to nuts, everybody. No one's more important than anyone else in Scituate and who we hire. So this is just another important hire for us. And I think the process has been extremely thorough, inclusive, and transparent. Just to highlight the process, it's been similar to other searches. The major difference, as Dr. Maestas overseeing it, it was posted in multiple venues to a wide pool of applicants. We had 29 applicants, which is a high number comparatively for this type of position, and which is a credit to Scituate, the town, and the school community and the reputation. Similarly, in hearing some of the community interviews of our finalists last week, they mentioned that, and that was also a draw for me as superintendent to the town and to the school committee, community and school committee, and the leadership here and what it represents and the priority on education. Also important. A representative group of school community members, including students, staff, administrators, parents, caregivers, Ms. Brandolini from the school committee, and community members formed a screening committee who interviewed the candidates over a few nights. There were 8 interviews of the 29 applicants. 4 were chosen to move forward. Last week, they had a 1-hour, pretty intensive open forum with the community, in which the community was able to ask questions freely. And each applicant did an introductory statement, and then we're able to answer those questions. And the forum members that showed up were able to offer feedback that I received and have read as part of the process in giving community stakeholders voice in the decision of this next assistant superintendent. So I've read that. It was very in-depth and inclusive. So I want to thank everyone that took the time to fill those forms out. They are important and they are included in the process. The next step is central office interviews, which will take place tomorrow. We'll be interviewing for 1 hour each, all 4 candidates. So we've all had access to the information that on each candidate. We attended the forums to get more information, and then we'll have pretty detailed interviews tomorrow. The central office team, which including myself and including our new DEI director, they will make recommendations for me and offer me feedback at that point with all the information garnered from the searches, the forum feedback, and the central office feedback, and my own personal feedback. Will next include extensive reference checks, which I've started on the 4 finalists pretty intensely, basically calling everyone and anyone that I know connected to these folks, so that people in Scituate will know that it's not just the 3 or 4 references you put down, it's everyone else in the community in education that I know I'll be talking to get feedback on all of our candidates so that we make the right choice. So that's an important part. And then the last piece will be a one-on-one with me and the final candidate, or 2. If it's 2 that are that neck and neck, I'll interview 2 by myself in a more thorough and detailed interview if I see fit on that occasion. So then the last step will be the contract negotiations and recommendations to hire, which should be wrapped up on our timeline for an introduction to the school committee at our May 10th meeting. The finalists are Heidi Driscoll, Gina Flanagan, Sarah Shannon, and Barbara Starkey. And lastly, and then I'll be happy to take questions. I've actually got 2 more things. So I guess I'll pause there because does anybody have any questions on that process or anything to do with that? So I can chunk this so not throwing too much at you at once.
Any comments or questions about the assistant super search?
I'm good.
All right.
Thank you. I should have started off with this, but our last meeting was April 12th, as we know, and it was a town meeting night. I want to publicly thank and personally thank the Scituate community for supporting the FY22 school committee budget. I'd also like to thank our school staff and leadership for all their efforts in building a responsible and strong budget that reflects our values, and our school committee for your guidance and support in the process. I also know Peter and Mike Hayes were a part of the newly formed or revived subcommittee that gave us a lot of guidance and feedback, which was extremely helpful for Dr. Dutch and I being new to the community. So I want to give you a personal shout out as well. So on behalf of the schools, I'd like to thank you all and know that we value every single penny and look forward to being responsible stewards of the town's investment as we build the best school district in the world for our students. So thank you. Lastly, I wanted to just bring up something that's been brought to my attention from a handful of people, that is school start times. I know this will be on next agenda, will be on the school calendar for next year. We didn't do the flip side of the calendar, which is school start times. And I'm anticipating those at this point to be the recommendation to be the times we have now. But depending on what feedback I get from the school committee on my recommendation tonight, we can go from there. But I know there was a lot of work, and I have access to the documents, and the research was done and the hard work that was put in by a committee last year to look at school start times. And I know recently MASC has shared some new information and some updated information on school start times. So I guess I wanted to let you all know that I will be looking at that with our team and maybe getting a small group together to reassess and analyze that data. I don't know if the work was finished. I know there were some changes to the school start times, but I'd be happy to relook at that and to share that data with the school committee if you so choose, and to put together some recommendations based on that. I know, for example, we are having a heck of a time with traffic at the middle and high school. And if there's a way to kind of alleviate some of that with adjusting start times, that may be helpful to the district. Also, I know the elementary times are, weren't changed from previous, and maybe looking in depth at that some more and reporting out on where that stands might be helpful to people. The time frame is interesting because typically changing school start times takes a full year to garner input and to get things. So my recommendation might be that I share what we come up with from the information already gathered. We could do some surveys to the school community, parents, staff, students, certainly school committee feedback. And if based on our research of all the study that's been done by the committee in the past, and so if there are some recommendations that I bring that are supported overwhelmingly by the community and by the school committee, maybe there's some quick wins there. So that's one option. And if not, then we're more knowledgeable about the data that we have. And then if the school committee so chooses, we don't have the survey data to show there's overwhelming support for changes at this time, then we can continue the work into next year. So those are just some options that I wanted to bring up, but again, it's been on my radar and been shared to me by folks in the community, and I just wanted to make sure you all have kind of lived through it, not me, just to get some guidance and direction from the committee on where to proceed next. So I just wanted to share some possible suggestions as we move late into the year.
Great, thank you. Any comments or questions by the committee?
I have just a couple of questions.
Sure.
Or maybe just one question and a comment. I was just curious about the COVID cases. We have the Binax available in the school system. Have we been using that a lot? Have they been testing staff or students?
Yep, am I still unmuted?
No.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you,
Yeah. Okay. Yes, we have, and it's been working, and we went on vacation this week, so we haven't this week, but I can get you some more details on how many, and I know Ms. Roach is keeping track of the exact numbers, and so I can share that with each of you if that works.
Yeah, I was just curious that, I mean, it's a great, you know, it's very accurate, and
right.
I'm glad we're taking advantage of that. And I want to comment on the, I was listening to the candidates, and it was really nice getting to know all 4 candidates and hearing their answers to the questions. Yeah, and I think that's all I have.
And thank you for participating and being part of that. I appreciate it, Jess.
I was actually kind of disappointed there weren't more people. There were only about 25 people that signed up, and it was a lot of staff, which is great. But
yeah, I think we had like closer to 40 sign up, but only like you said, 30 showed up. So yeah, it would have been great if more came.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was vacation or not, but I think, you know, we looked at the timeline and teasing this thing out and looking at the 4 candidates we have. And I know this was brought up by the screening committee. A couple of members brought it to my attention. I know Dr. Maestas did as well, is that people were concerned about when you got quality candidates like this, and there's multiple jobs, and especially some close to us applying for the same position, we don't want to lose them. So it was our objective to keep this thing moving and not stall it another week. So I'm not sure if vacation had anything to do with it, but now with Zoom, there's really no excuse not to jump on, I guess, if you're really interested. So we thought we'd go for it. So, but thank you for attending. That's great.
All right, thanks.
Any other comments or questions for Superintendent Burkhead?
I'll make a comment about the looking into the start times. I think we've talked about, I've had conversations with Bill about this already. I completely support taking the time for you and the team there to look into it and see if there are any recommendations, and also getting an up-to-date pulse on the community and how families feel going forward. So I guess my initial hesitation, thinking back months ago, was more that there was so much on the district's plate with all of the COVID and going back to school and making decisions related to COVID, that it seemed like a completely impossible task. But I think even as evidence tonight, that things are on such a good handle, that if you think it's something that we can have looked at, then I would support that initiative for sure.
Thank you, Ms. Brindley. Yes, I think we can, because I think there's a lot of good legwork done last year. So I think we can pull that together and have a presentation for you all. And
so will you do surveys prior to our that May meeting that's coming up?
I don't know if we can pull, I don't think we can pull it together that quick. It'd probably be June.
Yeah.
You know,
okay.
we've already kind of looked at the timing. We're going to pull together a little group and start looking at it, and then you know, having some idea, then the whole idea process, the creative thinking process, and okay, how is this going to impact busing, and kind of build on what has already been, you know, done by the former committee, and then come up with some possible solutions, and then share them with you, and hopefully at the late May meeting, and then get surveys out there and have that information. And then I guess that was the plan. If our solutions are pretty good and overwhelmingly supported, then it might be an easy move to do. If they're not, it looks like a heavy lift that will need more time, we simply say, okay, we'll continue our work through the summer and into the fall, and it's something we'll continue to work on. So I think it's a win-win that you know, we can have something for you all to look at, and I think it'll be ready by the end of May, first meeting in June.
All right, sounds good.
Any other comments or questions? All right. This is the second and final opportunity for public comment. If you have a question, please raise your hand. And we have one. Jen O'Neill, could identify name, address, please, or sign in.
Hi, Peter. Oh, hi, Peter. Jen O'Neill, 279 Gannett Road. That's for you, Jeannie, since I usually forget. So I have one comment and one question. My comment is I was able to listen to the assistant superintendent interviews or community events last week, and I was very impressed with all 4 candidates. So, I mean, I have my fave, which I shared, but just want to let you know that there are 4 good candidates there. And my question is, I know that you stated the last day of school for pre-K through 11. Do we have an official last day for seniors scheduled yet? And I don't know if Dr. McGuire is still on to answer that. There's been some back and forth about a new date.
Can we get an answer to that for the last day for seniors?
It's going to be May 21st, Friday. Students will have the opportunity to have their teachers sign off that they are free to complete. Those students needing some additional time in with their teachers will have the 24th, 5th, and 6th available to work if they need to get up and over to the finish line or have anything else to finish. So it's going to be a teacher choice on those days, almost like the final days for seniors. So the last official day will be the 21st.
Well, that confirms the rumor of the 21st that I have been hearing all day long. So thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it. And that's it for my questions and comments. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any others? Seeing none. We have acceptance of minutes. We have from the April 12th regular schedule meeting that was held just prior to town meeting, and then the very brief one that we held right at town meeting. If no questions, I would entertain a motion on both of those minutes. Anyone?
I move to approve the April 12th, 2021 regular scheduled school committee meeting minutes as presented.
Motion by Mr. Long. Is there a second?
Second.
Mike, I don't think you were there.
I wasn't at the brief one, right? No.
I don't think you were.
I can still second the motion. We're voting on two meetings, right?
Yeah, no, April 12th, we technically had 2 meetings. We had our real meeting and then we had the one in the gymnasium. I don't believe you were in attendance for either of those.
No, that's right, because I had that family thing.
Okay. So I'd rather not take it. Can you make a motion? Can you make a second?
Sure.
You just can't vote.
I can abstain, yes.
Okay. So I'll take the second from Mr. Hayes. Roll call vote to Ms. Brandolini.
Yes.
Ms. Lindblom.
Yes.
Gates is yes, and Mr. Long.
Yes.
And Mr. Hayes, you are
abstaining. Yep.
Abstaining. 4-0, 1 abstention. And do I have a motion for the April 12th town meeting? I don't know what we call that one.
Move to approve the April 12th, 2021 town meeting minutes as presented.
Motion by Mr. Long, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Hayes.
We gotta keep the meeting moving here.
I just don't know if you can do that, but I guess you can as long as you don't vote.
Sure.
Roll call vote. Ms. Brandolini.
Yes.
Gates is yes. Lindblom.
Yes.
Mr. Long.
Yes.
And Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
No, you can't vote.
Abstained, yeah.
4-0, 1 abstention, Jeannie. All right, thank you. Next subcommittee report, South Shore Educational Collaborative, Superintendent Burkhead.
Thank you, Chairman Gates. So at the last meeting, the budget projection sheet and program enrollment for the Board of Directors meeting was on April 9th. That was in your documentation. The enrollment projections and budget projection for the fiscal year are in line with projected budget. And the financial projection for the FY21 indicates that there will be a positive financial balance at the close of the school year. So that was good news. The FY22 budget was discussed. The board voted to approve the budget. And finally, the rental space at Randolph High School will be renovated for the return of the South Shore Educational Collaborative Programming for September of next year.
Excellent. Any comments? Seeing none, moving forward. Correspondence. We actually did have correspondence. I think that everyone received from the town. If not, let me know. The town is doing a webinar for all committees, groups, and I think employees at Town of Scituate on the Code of Conduct training to all town boards and committees. That will be held virtually on May 12th from 11:30 to 1. And if you have the link, I think you need to sign up via that. If you don't have it, let me know. I'm not sure if it's required. I don't really know. I will look into it a little bit further, but I know that we were invited.
Yeah, Peter, can you find out? Because that's a Monday morning. So, I know most of us work. So it's one of those things that.
I don't think
I think it's a Wednesday. It's a Wednesday.
I think, but I don't think it's required.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know if it's something that the town's requiring us to do or recommending that we do. I don't really know, but I will find out. But it is May 12th, which is a Wednesday. Same deal, Mike. It's still during working hours, so 11:30 to 1.
And in the past, I mean, they've had other things that we've had to do on an annual or every couple of year basis. So I just want to make sure that we're covered there.
Yep. All right, and the other one is you probably all get, I think you all get at your house just a mask bulletin. We received the most recent one in April. And that's all I have for correspondence. Next are warrants. Dr. Dutch.
We have one warrant. It is warrant S210415. As always, signed by committee member Lindblom. Fairly small total warrant, $141,540.26, of which $116,950 were from our LEA budget. School lunch was out of a revolving account, $14,694. Advanced placement test payment, student high school activity refunds, and then payment from course for professional development. There was only two large items on the local warrant funds. One is for collaborative tuition, $30,645.83. The other was our electric utilities. Electric bill was $56,653.98, and nothing else of any note or significance. As you look at the warrant, you have any questions? Happy to answer those.
No question. I'm just curious, Dr. Dutch. Electric utilities I don't know for what period that is. Just curious if we've had an increase or a decrease or same. I'm assuming a lot of people are using their computers and charging and so on. Just curious if it has any impact.
Yeah, that number is a little higher than normal, and we are, and I'll update you at the next meeting on where we are in the budget, but we are a little bit over where we anticipate being both for electric and gas utilities at this point.
Okay.
Which again surprises me because it wasn't that cold a winter for the gas for our heating costs. But, I'm not sure what's happening to gas rates.
Fewer bodies in the buildings to keep it warm.
Could be.
All right. Anything else that the committee would like to discuss?
Pete, I have one thing.
Yes, Mr. Hayes.
Just so that all of the other members of the school committee know, and maybe especially Janice, the selectmen have an opening on the town DEI committee. And so I took part in that, and I'm finally involved. It took a while, but I guess I'm the liaison, and I attended the last meeting, and it's a great committee. It's a fabulous group of people, but they are looking for a full member if anybody's interested.
So it wouldn't be from the school side, just be from the public potentially.
Well, could be, yeah, it could be one of us though, if you want.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, Mike, I've been, I guess, viewing some of their meetings. They do have them pretty frequently. I think it's twice a month at least, and they're pretty lengthy and in-depth meetings.
And they're difficult for me too, because I have a monthly meeting held on the same day. So
yeah,
it's difficult. Same date and time, same day and time, but it's a fantastic group of people.
Yep. All right. So future agenda items we have. So our next meeting is May 10th. We'll be celebrating student learning at Wampatuck, secondary school update full in person. We will look, as Superintendent Burke had said, the school calendar, the second page potentially. And we will be having our policies, and Shore is on there as well. And then I had asked Dr. Dutch, as he referenced earlier, for a financial update, right? Anything else? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 9:06.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Hayes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Long. Roll call vote. Gates, yes. Lindblom.
Yes.
Ms. Brandolini.
Yes.
Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
And Mr. Long.
Yes.
Great. Meeting is adjourned. Thanks very much, guys. Have a nice night.